Amada Shiro was just an ordinary employee, weary of his monotonous life as a salaried worker. Frustrated, he decided to quit his job and move back to his grandmother's house. While there, he stumbled upon a hidden storage room. To his amazement, when he opened the door, it revealed a portal to another world. Shocked, Shiro closed the door, thinking he was simply dizzy from overworking and imagining things. But curiosity got the better of him, and he opened the door again. This time, he stood in awe at the sight of a mystical forest on the other side. Could this be the secret his grandmother had hinted at 7 years ago? Shiro's grandmother had disappeared 7 years earlier, and was officially declared dead last month. This tragic event prompted Shiro to leave his city life behind and return to the countryside, aiming to live a simpler life of farming and fishing. Back in the house, Shiro found a letter next to his grandmother's portrait. It was addressed to him. In the letter, his grandmother unveiled an old secret, highlighting 6 crucial points. 1. A wardrobe that connects to a world called Rafar. 2. The existence of magic spells and strange sorcery. 3. The presence of dangerous monsters in Rafar. 4. Various species and humans coexist in this world. 5. A ring left in the envelope that allows Shiro to understand the language of Rafar. 6. Instructions to wear the ring and read a book inside the wardrobe. Overwhelmed by this flood of information, Shiro sank to the floor. After processing everything, he opened the 2 books mentioned by his grandmother. They were filled with dense text that he couldn't comprehend. Remembering her instructions, Shiro quickly put on the ring. Although he could now read the words, they still didn't make sense to him. Suddenly, a voice in his head announced that he had acquired the skill of equivalent exchange, startling Shiro and causing him to fall to the ground, bewildered by this new revelation. The experience felt straight out of a novel or game. The voice spoke again, informing Shiro that he had gained the skill of collection. Realizing the voice would chime in whenever he acquired something new, Shiro finished reading his books, still unsure if he should risk exploring this new world. It was already late, so he decided to set off the next day, planning to buy some supplies first. The following morning, Shiro stood before his grandmother's altar, praying for guidance and company. With a large bag in hand, he stepped through the wardrobe door and emerged in a bustling urban area. After half a day of walking, his stomach growled incessantly, forcing him to slow down. He noticed a vendor enthusiastically advertising grilled rabbit meat for just 3 coins. Unfortunately, Shiro didn't have any local currency. Hungry and disappointed, he inquired about the price before walking away, listening to people behind him praise the delicious aroma. Shiro couldn't help but salivate, regretting his inability to taste the food. Frustrated, he looked up at the sky and pulled out 42,000 yen from his Japanese leftovers. Suddenly, the yen transformed into a series of different coins in Shiro's hand. Disbelieving, he rushed back to the vendor, holding out the coins to confirm their validity. The vendor, though initially looking at him like he was crazy, guessed Shiro might be from another country and smiled kindly. Realizing this was the skill of equivalent exchange at work, Shiro ordered 3 skewers of meat and received a 1-coin discount. As he ate, he silently thanked the vendor for his generosity. His first meal in this new world tasted bland, reminiscent of the dull emotions of an ex-lover. He wondered about the money he had just exchanged. Shiro wondered if his skill could also convert the foreign coins back into Japanese yen. To his surprise, when he activated his skill again, the foreign coins transformed back into yen. Excited, he realized this ability allowed him to exchange any currency from any world. He contemplated the wealth he could amass in this world and then take back to Japan. To test it, he converted 10,000 yen, which produced 1 silver coin. Each regular coin was equivalent to 100 yen, and 1 silver coin was worth 10,000 yen. He now had 2 silver coins and 34 regular coins. When he showed one of the silver coins to a vendor, the man shook his head in disappointment, explaining that his shop wasn't large enough to make the exchange. Undeterred, Shiro slung his backpack over his shoulder and walked away. Observing the vendor's reaction, he deduced that his money would suffice, allowing him to explore the city freely. He wandered through narrow alleys leading to the main street, delighted by the variety of faces he encountered, even spotting a girl with cat ears. As he took in the curious glances from people around him, Shiro examined his own attire. Suddenly, a little girl carrying flowers approached him. She looked like a schoolgirl and wanted to sell each flower for 3 coins. Seeing Shiro's hesitation, she quickly reduced the price to 2, then 1 coin. Without much ado, Shiro picked a yellow flower and paid the original price of 3 coins. The girl was astonished and agreed to Shiro's condition when he asked for her name. She introduced herself as Anna, and the two exchanged introductions. Through Anna, Shiro learned valuable information about the city. They were in the Nino-rich district of the Julum Kingdom, where the currency was divided into 3 units. 100 regular coins equaled 1 silver coin, and 100 silver coins made 1 gold coin, making a gold coin worth 1 million yen. The average monthly income of the locals was about 8 silver coins, and only a few city residents ever traded in gold coins. In the city, Shiro knew he needed to negotiate with the local authorities first. Before that, he decided to buy 10 more flowers from Anna. She was surprised but grateful, accepting the 30 coins and thanking him warmly. Following Anna's guidance, they made their way to the local government office. Shiro felt nervous as a foreigner, unsure of the potential difficulties he might face. As expected, meeting the manager made him anxious. The manager handed him a form to fill out with his name, hours of operation, and type of goods. Shiro was given options: street vendor, retailer, or shop owner. He quickly chose to be a retailer for 5 days at the rate of 10 coins per day, equivalent to 1,000 yen. He muttered to himself that it was cheaper than Tokyo's market rate of 3,000 yen per day, only to quickly close his mouth. Hearing this, the manager smiled and mentioned that the rate was set by the mayor, wishing Shiro good luck and success in his endeavors. Shiro and Anna left the government office, having efficiently completed all the necessary formalities in just about 15 minutes. Grateful for her assistance, Shiro thanked Anna warmly, and was ready to part ways. However, realizing Shiro's unfamiliarity with the local streets, Anna offered to guide him to the market, an ideal place for him to set up his stall. As they walked, Shiro pondered what he should sell. He sought Anna's opinion, and she suggested targeting the numerous tourists who frequently visited the city. She pointed to the distant forest teeming with monsters, a popular destination for adventurers seeking to gather various items. Shiro recalled seeing many people dressed like adventurers near the forest and felt lucky he hadn't encountered any monsters on his way. Anna then gave Shiro a comprehensive tour of the market. They first visited a lantern shop, then moved on to a store selling cloaks and sleeping bags, followed by a weapons shop, and finally, a vendor specializing in ropes. During their market tour, Shiro and Anna walked hand in hand, exploring every nook and cranny. Shiro couldn't help but notice Anna's thoughtful gestures and kindness, reflecting on how she would grow into an amazing wife. Her presence stirred in him a newfound desire to have a family of his own, sooner rather than later. Amidst these reflections, Shiro decided on the type of goods he would sell. The next morning marked the beginning of their venture. Anna resumed her usual routine of selling flowers, while Shiro set up his own stall. He carefully laid a cloth on the ground and neatly arranged his items, patiently waiting for his first customer. While Anna faced some challenges selling her flowers, Shiro's stall quickly attracted attention. A young man, intrigued by the unfamiliar item Shiro was selling, approached the stall. Shiro eagerly explained that what the man thought were simple paper boxes were actually matchboxes. He demonstrated their use by extracting a small wooden stick and striking it against the side of the box, producing a flame. The man's reaction was a mix of disbelief and amazement.
As the young man stumbled and fell, the unusual display quickly caught the attention of nearby pedestrians. A curious crowd began to gather around Shiro's booth, watching intently as he demonstrated the matches once more. Their faces lit up with astonishment, their reactions ranging from disbelief to excitement. They couldn't fathom how striking a small stick against a piece of paper could produce fire. Shiro invited everyone to try it themselves, aiming to draw even more attention to his booth. From his thorough market exploration the previous day, he had realized that the locals had never seen matches before, and likely, neither had anyone in this world. Seizing this opportunity, Shiro swiftly returned to his world to stock up on more matchboxes to sell. From the elderly to young adventurers, no one had ever encountered these magical items before. In their world, starting a fire with dry wood was manageable but time-consuming. These matches, however, seemed like powerful magical artifacts. Amidst a landscape of constant challenges and fears, especially without wizards, the sense of camaraderie was palpable. It was the perfect time to set a price. Shiro confidently began his sales pitch to the bustling crowd. The young man who had stumbled earlier asked about the price, with everyone anxiously awaiting Shiro's response. Shiro jokingly asked the young man how much he thought it should cost. The young man guessed 80 coins. Smiling, Shiro knew he had two pricing options in this world. First, he could sell the matches as luxury items at sky-high prices, or second, he could sell them cheaper and profit based on volume. The first option would yield high profits per transaction but limit the number of buyers. The second option would attract a larger customer base but with lower profit per sale. Opting for the latter, Shiro announced loudly that each box contained 40 matches and, as a special opening day offer, they would sell for just 5 coins per box. The crowd fell silent for 3 seconds before erupting into a frenzy, pushing and shoving to buy the matches in bulk. By the end of the day, Shiro had sold out to 100 customers. Exhausted, he lay on the ground, wondering how he'd handle even more customers the next day. Without wasting any time, he packed up and went to find Anna. Anna was struggling with her flower sales, disappointed that her beautiful blooms weren't attracting much interest. Her mood brightened instantly when she heard Shiro calling her name. When he asked about her sales, she couldn't hold back her tears of frustration. Shiro quickly took her hand, pulled her close, and suggested she help him at his booth the next day, offering to pay her for her work. Anna was initially shocked by the offer, but her confusion soon turned to joy, and she eagerly accepted, grateful for the opportunity. Shiro anticipated a busy day ahead and thanked the young girl warmly before they parted ways. After ensuring Anna had left, Shiro slipped away to a hidden spot where he accessed a spatial portal connected to his wardrobe at home. His clueless dog in the backyard barked as Shiro vanished through the portal, which he could summon with a mere thought. Once back in his room, Shiro counted his earnings, converting the local currency into Japanese yen using his equal exchange skill. To his amazement, his earnings from just an hour of sales equaled a month's salary at his old job. Excited by the thought, he realized that if this continued, he might soon live comfortably without working another day in his life. Determined to achieve this dream, Shiro headed to the supermarket to buy more matchboxes. He hadn't noticed before, but now he found weather-resistant matches that could withstand wind and water. Quickly filling his shopping cart, he headed to the cashier, who nervously asked if he planned to start a fire with such a large purchase. Meanwhile, Shiro struggled with the weight of his heavy shopping bags, finding them cumbersome and tiring. Then he remembered he had another skill. Setting his bags down, he focused his mind, and a new space materialized. Shiro recognized it as his personal storage dimension. He started tossing all the matchboxes into this bottomless space. Previously, he struggled to fit all the matches into his backpack. But with such a large quantity, one backpack wouldn't suffice. Luckily, he had this vast three-dimensional space at his disposal. Not only did this storage space hold everything, but it also displayed information about each item within it, leaving Shiro amazed at its power. He began to believe strongly in a future where he could become rich without worrying about basic needs. On his way home from the supermarket, a mother and her child noticed Shiro's jubilant demeanor. The innocent child pointed at him, telling his mother about the strange man talking to himself. Hearing this comment, Shiro blushed, quickly closed his mouth, and hurried home. In two different worlds, both Shiro and Anna left their homes and headed to the same location. When they arrived, they found a large crowd already gathered on the street. Shiro was concerned as he set up his booth, worried that the massive number of customers might cause trouble for neighboring shops. While he was lost in thought, the owner of a nearby grilled meat stand called out to him. The man had heard about the powerful item known as a matchbox and wanted to see the seller in person. To Shiro's surprise, it was him. Seeing Shiro struggle with the crowd, a woman next to the stand owner offered Shiro a spot on the outskirts of the city, even proposing that it be free for the day. Shiro was delighted with this offer, realizing that moving to a new location would not affect the surrounding stalls. He and Anna gratefully thanked the two people in front of them. Curious about the woman's identity, the owner introduced her as his sister. Although they looked nothing alike, Shiro appreciated the help. At the new booth location, Shiro and Anna got busy setting up their items. They developed their own signs for smoother operations, labeling small matchboxes, large ones, and a different type for survival matchboxes. Finally, the time came to open up shop. A line of customers stretched endlessly, like the path to one's true love. As they officially began selling, both Shiro and Anna were incredibly busy. Anna, being short, struggled to reach the items quickly, while Shiro handled customer interactions and advice. Despite working tirelessly, Anna felt a strong sense of joy in her task. The matchboxes sold like hotcakes, their numbers dwindling quickly until, as expected, they sold out. Some customers left disappointed, but the grilled meat stand owner and his sister were thrilled to have helped Shiro with his sales. In just 3 hours, Shiro had earned 1.5 million coins, equivalent to 500,000 yen per hour, double what he had made the previous day. Gazing at the vast amount of money, Shiro felt dizzy with excitement, like a millionaire. He packed all the coins into a bag and then into his storage space. Taking a portion, he handed it to Anna as her day's wage. Sitting down, Shiro gently patted Anna's head and suggested she use the money to buy something nice for herself and her mother, acknowledging her crucial help that day. Anna's face lit up with gratitude as she thanked Shiro profusely. Her thanks were so effusive that Shiro had to gently place his finger on her lips to quiet her. Suddenly remembering something, Shiro opened his backpack and pulled out 2 sandwiches, handing one to Anna. They hadn't eaten all day. Seeing the food, Anna eagerly took a bite, her eyes sparkling with delight. It was her first time tasting a white bread sandwich, and she found the taste to be exceptional. As they enjoyed their meal, a woman approached them and stood before Shiro. She introduced herself as Karen Sankara, the mayor of the town. Shiro thought she wanted to buy some matchboxes and mentioned that they were sold out for the day. However, Karen clarified that she wasn't there to buy matches but to meet him, the famous matchbox seller. Shiro was taken aback to find that Mayor Nina Rich was a beautiful woman, far from the gruff and tough man he had imagined. She greeted Shiro with elegance, expressing how honored and fortunate the town was to have a merchant of his caliber among them. Seeing Shiro's simple reaction, Karen continued, explaining that the town was in a remote location and burdened by stubborn traders who believed they should bear heavy responsibilities, often resulting in them selling goods at exorbitant prices. In contrast, the products sold by Karen's group were priced so low that their finances never improved. No one seemed capable of resolving this issue until Karen intervened with the idea of establishing a marketplace in town. She saw Shiro's assistance as crucial for this project. Without giving him time to be astonished, Karen handed him a key from her pocket. Anna, witnessing this, exclaimed that the mayor might want to live with Shiro or even marry him, leaving Shiro speechless. Karen quickly clarified that it wasn't about seeking a life partner but about wanting to collaborate with Shiro. The key opened a vacant house nearby, and she proposed that he set up shop on the first floor. Karen mentioned that some local traders had complained about the large crowds resembling a busy market, which they didn't appreciate. Shiro fell silent, realizing the challenge his business might face under the current circumstances. Karen then took them to see the house. After a thorough tour, both Shiro and Anna liked the new space. Shiro decided to open his store there the next day. As Karen was about to leave, she had one more question. Anna whispered to Shiro, guessing the mayor might ask if she was engaged to Shiro, misunderstanding the situation. To clear up any confusion, Karen quickly interjected, explaining she wasn't interested in such matters. She only wanted to know why a skilled merchant like Shiro would choose to trade in a small town with a population of about 500 when he could potentially do better in a busier location. Contrary to her expectations, Shiro simply replied that he liked it there. Even though he had only been in the town for 3 days, Shiro had already met many wonderful people. The kind-hearted barbecue stall owner, the hard-working Anna, and a mayor who treated strangers with incredible kindness. These reasons were more than enough for Shiro to fall in love with the town. Karen, deeply moved by Shiro's words, was brought to tears. The three of them shook hands joyfully, confident that their collaboration would strengthen the town. In just 3 days, the match seller had secured his shop and signed a 1-month contract for a space in the town square. He began working immediately. 5 days later, his match sales reached record highs, and he had nothing left to sell. Shiro and Anna apologized to the late-arriving customers, assuring them that he had thought he'd stocked enough matches for everyone in town, but the demand remained high. After tidying up the stall, Shiro suggested Anna take a break. He brought tea and snacks to her room, only to find her fast asleep. He set the tray on the table quietly, but the slight noise stirred the sleepy 8-year-old. Thinking Shiro was her father, she hurriedly hugged him and fell asleep on his shoulder. Shiro, reluctant yet tender, carried the exhausted child back to bed and tucked her in. It had been a challenging day for them both. On the 5th day, customers had to return early in the morning due to a lack of stock. Shiro longed for a day off, feeling utterly exhausted. Just then, Karen entered and mentioned that a committee from the capital would soon be visiting to discuss the possibility of officially establishing a branch. She asked Shiro to demonstrate his matches to the visiting officials to help strengthen Niner's position. Shiro agreed to Karen's request. Karen, noting this, remarked that it was the first time she had seen such items and asked where he got them. Shiro hesitated, not fully revealing the source, and Karen didn't press further. She noted that if Shiro was the sole seller of these matches, it would attract significant attention from the committee members. She implied that using the matches to draw their attention could, in turn, attract more people to Niner Rich. This would encourage other merchants to invest more in developing local resources. Shiro, holding the box of matches, thought it might indeed be a successful endeavor. He considered adding new and interesting items to diversify his merchandise but couldn't decide what those might be just yet. The next afternoon, the shop closed early again as all the products were sold out. Sitting in his chair, Shiro racked his brain, trying to find a way to impress the committee supervisors. He decided to visit Karen briefly and asked Anna to stay and watch the shop in the meantime. Karen heard that Shiro had sold out early again and joked that he was truly a skilled merchant. Shiro, not entirely in agreement, mentioned that the amount of merchandise he sold was 5 times the town's population. He also heard rumors that some people were reselling his matchboxes at exorbitant prices elsewhere. With this spreading trend, Shiro suggested they limit the number of items sold. Karen then brought up something she wanted to discuss, and they went upstairs to continue the conversation in detail. Sitting down, Karen asked if he knew about an adventurers guild in town called Silver Moon. To her surprise, Shiro was quite familiar with them, knowing many of his customers were adventurers from the guild. The guild functioned as a trading intermediary, receiving requests from clients and passing them on to adventurers. Their tasks ranged from monster extermination to gathering herbs and mushrooms. Karen continued, explaining that Silver Moon was the only adventurers guild in town, led by a charismatic guild master named Gilmas. However, Gilmas had fled the town the previous night, leaving the guild in disarray and without funds to sustain it. The adventurers were preparing to leave the town, taking their funds with them. This posed a significant problem for the small, underdeveloped town, as the collapse of the guild would further hinder its progress. As the mayor, Karen was understandably concerned. She had prepared a strategy before talking to Shiro. She revealed that the main adventurers guild from the capital wanted to establish a branch in her town, which could offer a solution to their difficulties. Until now, Karen had always rejected this proposal, considering the Silver Moon Guild, but with the current situation, she decided to accept the offer. Shiro fully supported this decision, recognizing the critical role the guild played in the community. Therefore, the adventurer's new proposal seemed perfectly fitting in this context. Shiro informed Karen of his desire to become an adventurer, seeking her advice on the matter. Karen, stunned, asked if he was truly serious. Shiro believed that joining the guild was the best way to understand what adventurers needed. Karen warned him about the dangers, noting that the only place to venture was the perilous eastern forest. Shiro acknowledged this but clarified that he intended to focus on gathering herbs and minerals, which were less hazardous. Relieved, Karen admitted that her relationship with the Silver Moon Guild had been strained. The previous night, the guild leader had approached her, red-faced and tearful, begging for a loan. Shiro was shocked by this frank admission and inquired about the amount needed. Karen revealed that the guild had asked for 10 gold coins, equivalent to 10 million yen in Japan, an impossible sum to gather in their remote location. Consequently, Karen had refused the request, freezing their relationship with the guild. She wrote a letter of introduction for Shiro, though she doubted its effectiveness. Shiro then headed directly to the Silver Moon Guild, located in the eastern part of town. Standing at the entrance, Shiro felt a wave of nervousness. He wondered if he would be rebuffed or intimidated as a newcomer. Gathering his courage, Shiro opened the door and greeted everyone loudly. To his surprise, the place was completely empty. Confused, he heard distant sobbing and followed the sound. Approaching the source, he found a girl with an attractive yet seemingly quiet demeanor. Shiro was taken aback to find someone there. The girl's demeanor turned aggressive as she shouted that if Shiro dared to step any closer, she would summon thousands of fierce Silver Moon warriors to tear him apart. Shiro, skeptical, mumbled that there didn't seem to be anyone else around to hear her. The girl pouted and yelled that she alone was enough to destroy him, boasting that her thunderous punch could shatter a stone, let alone a weak human like Shiro. Rolling his eyes at her theatrics, Shiro gently inquired about the guild's whereabouts, emphasizing the importance of the information and expressing his hope to meet the guild leader. The girl looked stunned for a moment but then agreed, suddenly pointing to herself and declaring that she was the acting leader of the guild. Now it was Shiro's turn to be shocked, exclaiming loudly in surprise. Shiro met a cat-eared girl named Emile, who happens to be the acting president of the Silver Moon Society. Oddly enough, there are no other staff members around, and the whereabouts of another young girl, who was part of the society, remain unknown ever since the previous president vanished. Shiro and Emile ended up chatting for 5 straight hours, during which Emile guzzled liquor like it was water and swore in multiple languages at those who had abandoned the society. Sensing an opportunity, Shiro handed Emile a letter of introduction from the mayor. This made Emile furious, and she angrily asked if Shiro was referring to that big-breasted, small-brained woman. Surprised, Shiro chuckled and gently corrected her, saying he meant Karen-san, the mayor of Kaya Nino City. Emile sneered, remarking that all the nutrition the mayor consumed seemed to go to her chest rather than her brain, and called her the rudest person she had ever met. She then tore up the letter in a rage, declaring that the mayor who abandoned the Silver Moon Society to promote another guild was a vile, inhumane person. Elsewhere, Mayor Karen sneezed, sensing someone was talking badly about her. Emile then lamented how she had begged Karen for a loan of 10 coins, only to be rejected. Shiro tried to comfort her, explaining that 10 gold coins are a substantial amount and difficult to come by quickly, and besides, Karen had her own concerns. Before Shiro could finish, Emile accused him of defending Karen, assuming they were close friends. She was shocked by the turn of events, realizing that without the money, the society would inevitably shut down. Exhausted, Emile fainted to the floor. Shiro pulled a tissue from his pocket and handed it to her. After a moment of thought, he mentioned that he had the authority to assign missions to the Silver Moon Society and needed her help. Emile, regaining her composure, sat up and took a pen, ready to make a special arrangement. If Shiro wanted to join, he would require a special escort, something unprecedented. Emile could only think of one competent team for the job, the 4-member group known as Azure Sky, whose services came at a steep price. The next day, Shiro returned to his shop to pack up his items, diligently hanging a closed sign on the door. His assistant, Anna, expressed her sadness about closing the shop temporarily. To lift her spirits, Shiro reassured her that it would only be for 3 days. He explained that he would be involved in a brief exploratory mission and then return to their regular business. Encouraged by this, Anna quickly became excited and hurried off to attend to some personal tasks. They bid each other farewell, promising to reunite in a few days. When Shiro arrived at the Silver Moon Guild, he was greeted by Emile, who had been eagerly awaiting his presence. Inside, a diverse team sat ready for action. Emile introduced Shiro to each member, outlining that they would embark on a collaborative expedition to gather rare medicinal herbs. The team was led by a surprisingly handsome man whom Shiro recognized after a moment of reflection as the first customer to buy matches from him. The leader, named Liar, approached Shiro for further introductions. He started with Ralph, a priest with an unusual combat style involving a mace to strike his foes. Next was Neska, a quiet but powerful mage whose magical prowess was impressive, despite her somewhat slow casting speed. Neska showed mild dissatisfaction with Liar's blunt introduction, playfully knocking him on the head with her staff. The last team member didn't wait for Liar's introduction. She eagerly stepped forward to greet Shiro herself. Her name was Keela, and her cat-like ears immediately caught Shiro's attention, prompting him to ask if she was part of a feline species. Liar jokingly suggested that Shiro might have a dislike for cat lovers, referencing a previous client. However, Shiro found Keela's demeanor quite charming. Flattered by Shiro's compliment, Keela blushed deeply, brandished her knife with newfound enthusiasm, and vowed to give her all in battle. Liar added that Keela's role in the team was as a scout, skilled in navigating and detecting potential traps and dangers. With introductions complete, the now quintet, including Shiro, set off on their venture, fully prepared for the challenges ahead. The mysterious Eastern region presents a new challenge for the Azure Sky team. The Azure Sky team, consisting of 4 distinct members, Ralph the warrior priest, Neska the mage, Keela the scout, and their leader Liar, set out on their mission. Shiro joins them, feeling a mix of anticipation and apprehension. Sensing Shiro's worries, Liar offers reassuring words, promising they will try to avoid any severe dangers. However, he cautions that the quest for the elusive herbs may not be easy. Ralph, brimming with confidence, chimes in optimistically, believing their seasoned skills will make the task of finding the herbs manageable. Their seasoned abilities were crucial for their task, finding high-quality herbs to complete their mission. After a long day's journey, nightfall signaled the need for rest. Liar decided it was time to stop, adhering to an unspoken rule of resting when Shiro was lost. Shiro, reflecting on this wisdom, wished he'd heard it from his former boss, admiring Liar as an exemplary leader. The 5 of them set up camp, building a large fire to gather around. Everyone thanked Shiro for the convenient matches, and Liar predicted they would be a big hit in the capital. Ralph warned that the notorious traitors there wouldn't let Shiro off easily, to which Liar, with a frequent smile, acknowledged Ralph's accurate prediction. During their conversation, Neska complained of hunger, exhausted from the day's journey. As everyone quietly took their share of food, Shiro noticed the simple fare: dried meat and hard bread, a stark reminder of the typical diet of travelers in the wild. Observing Shiro's reluctance to eat, Keela offered him a piece of jerky. Instead, Shiro pulled out an assortment of items like instant noodles, rice cakes, and cola from his backpack. The four members were stunned, their eyes wide with surprise. Curiously, they asked about these strange items, wondering if Shiro could eat it all by himself. Shiro laughed, clarifying that he couldn't possibly consume it all alone. He had brought enough for everyone, thinking they might enjoy trying out these new products from a convenience store and provide feedback. Liar chose the noodles, Keela picked the rice balls, Ralph went for the bread, and Nesca opted for the cola. The simple meal turned into a feast, ending with unanimous praise for its deliciousness. Keela was so full she could barely move, while Nesca quietly added the dishes to her list of favorite foods. Ralph, deeply moved, was brought to tears, admitting he had never tasted anything so wonderful in his life as a warrior. After everyone retired for the night, Liar and Shiro stayed up, engaged in conversation. Curious, Shiro asked why explorers didn't use sleeping bags. Liar explained that sleeping bags were cumbersome, especially in winter. Without them, the cold was almost deadly, but using them made their baggage heavier. He expressed a wish for personal storage space, a sentiment Shiro empathized with, nearly spitting out his drink in surprise. Liar added that only about 1 in 100,000 people might have such an ability, even hinting at rumors of ancient civilizations and dungeons containing books about storage space. Shiro nervously admitted that he actually possessed such a storage space. Shiro mentioned that he had a storage space along with 2 mysterious books. He asked Liar to speculate on the value of such items. After some thought, Liar responded that these items could be worth as much as a carriage or even enough to buy a noble's house. In essence, a fortune that one couldn't spend in a lifetime. Shiro silently felt fortunate for not revealing the existence of the 2 books to anyone and planned to inspect them later. As they were about to sleep, Liar suddenly heard a noise. He swiftly drew his sword and woke the others, alerting them to the approach of something terrifying. As the others scrambled to wake up, Nesca was still half asleep, dreaming about Sela. Shiro hurried to rouse her, while Keela tried unsuccessfully to catch the scent of the approaching creature. It was moving against the wind, rendering her senses useless. Liar urgently instructed Nesca to prepare her magic as the silhouette of their enemy came into view. They all quickly assumed battle positions. A massive brown bear emerged from the shadows, and Liar admitted in desperation that explorers like them stood no chance against it. Escape seemed impossible, and he estimated that only Keela might have a slim chance of getting away. Keela, however, resolutely refused to abandon the group. The dire situation required someone to act as bait for the beast, and Shiro feared that as the newcomer and non-explorer without magical abilities, he would likely be the sacrificial choice. Bracing for the worst, he expected Liar to approach him and whisper that for the sake of everyone's survival, Shiro had to act as the decoy. However, reality unfolded differently. With a firm voice, Liar instructed Shiro and the 2 female teammates to flee, while he and Ralph would stay behind to distract the bear. Liar and Ralph, standing side by side, shared a moment of camaraderie. Liar turned to apologize to Ralph, who simply smiled, understanding the depth of their long friendship. Facing the brink of life and death, Liar wanted to share his final words with the teammate who had been through thick and thin with him. There was also someone else he had hidden his feelings for. Confessing to Nesca, he asked her to understand his last act of courage before calling himself a foolish liar. He commanded that once he and Ralph engaged the creature, the others should flee. But before they could act, Keela sensed another creature's breath approaching from a different direction. Suddenly, they found themselves trapped between 2 monstrous attackers. Liar shouted for everyone to run, but it was too late. They were surrounded. Amidst the despair, Shiro searched deep within himself, refusing to lose faith. Shiro pulled out a few large fireworks from his storage space, lit them, and hurled them toward the giant bear. The fireworks startled the bear, making it stagger back. Seizing the moment, Shiro sprayed pepper spray directly into its eyes, causing it to howl in pain. But the other creature still posed a threat, lunging at Shiro. He met it with a confident smile, repeating his tactic effortlessly, spraying the second bear in its eyes. Now both bears were helpless, their eyes in agony. Amazed by the effectiveness of his simple yet clever tactic, Liar asked Shiro what kind of magic he was using. Shiro turned and explained that it was just an ordinary item containing a toxic gas. All he had to do was aim and spray it at the enemies. Though still somewhat puzzled, Liar recognized that this was not the time for a lengthy explanation. With the bear's eyes and nostrils compromised, Liar acknowledged Shiro's quick thinking and resourcefulness. Realizing the prime opportunity to strike, Liar, seasoned as he was, understood the importance of seizing the moment. He directed his team to attack the monsters with precision and coordination. Their combined efforts quickly subdued both bears. However, before the group could fully celebrate their victory, Shiro's voice cut through the air like a bolt of lightning. He mentioned it seemed like Liar had confessed his feelings to Nesca earlier. The atmosphere instantly became tense, with both Liar and Nesca blushing and fumbling over their words. Liar tried to deflect the awkwardness by swiftly redirecting the focus to the task at hand, harvesting the valuable resources from the slain bears. Keela was tasked with extracting the bears' teeth, while Nesca skillfully skinned them and collected the blood into leather bags, which she then preserved using a quick freezing spell. Curiosity sparked when Keela lifted the bears' testicles and inquired about their use. Ralph, knowledgeable in medicinal practices, explained that they could be used to make healing potions. Keela, unaffected by the nature of the task, got to work immediately, while Shiro, uncomfortable with the scene, quietly averted his gaze. Once each task was completed and the harvested items were neatly organized, Liar approached Shiro with a proposal. He suggested they pause their original mission and sell the fresh bear meat in the nearby town, reasoning that it was even more valuable than the elusive herbs they sought. Recognizing Shiro's critical contribution to their success, Liar offered him half of a bear as a token of appreciation. Shiro felt a bit embarrassed by the generous offer and was suddenly almost tackled by an overly enthusiastic Keela, aiming for a grateful hug. The plan took an unexpected turn as Shiro accidentally dodged, causing him to stumble into a bush. Shiro then spoke to Liar, understanding his reasoning and offering to help transport the bear. The team members were skeptical about Shiro's ability to carry such a massive load. Their doubt turned to amazement when he revealed his storage space, showcasing its immense capacity. Shiro apologized for not disclosing this secret earlier, his actions eliciting a mix of shock and admiration from his friends. As everyone stood in awe of Shiro's magical storage, he packed away the two bears and readied himself to continue the journey. Just when Shiro thought they were heading back to Nino Kaya, Liar suggested that since they had stored the bears, they could still continue their search for the elusive herbs. Thus, Shiro's expedition was extended by 2 more days. Upon their return, Anna eagerly awaited them on the road, her excitement palpable. She mistakenly thought Anna was Shiro's daughter. Liar corrected her, explaining that she was a great help at his shop. The group then headed to the Silver Moon Society to complete their mission. As they opened the doors, they were greeted with an unforgettable sight. Emile stood there with tears streaming down his face, being scolded by an enraged man. Curious, Shiro asked about the man's identity. The leader speculated that he might be a merchant dealing with materials. The man, furious, scolded Emile for repeatedly promising to repay him but failing to do so for half a year. He insisted he wouldn't let it go this time. Emile pleaded, promising once again to settle his debt. Shiro approached them, introducing himself as a trader from the town, expressing his interest in understanding the situation. The man, Gerald, softened slightly upon hearing this and introduced himself as a materials merchant. He explained that the first president of the society had borrowed 10 gold coins from him, using the society's main building as collateral in the contract. Gerald declared that if the debt remained unpaid, the building would legally become his property. He impatiently urged Emile to produce the land ownership documents. Emile, naturally resistant, further angered Gerald, who criticized his loyalty to the former president who had abandoned him. Gerald questioned why Emile wouldn't let go of a society heading towards its downfall, suggesting it might be better to do so. Emile clenched his fists, struggling to contain his emotions. After a moment, he responded, stating that his actions were not out of loyalty alone. Emile, holding back tears, asserted that the Silver Moon Society was where he belonged. It was a haven for someone like him, a half-beast often met with societal scorn. This place, filled with both joyful and sad memories, held a special place in his heart. The thought of losing it was unbearable. Shiro pondered his words, recalling a similar situation from his own past. 5 years ago, 2 years after his grandmother's death, his relatives had suggested selling the family home. Upon hearing this, Shiro had pleaded on his knees, begging them not to sell the house filled with memories of his grandmother, as if his life depended on it. He realized that Emile's situation mirrored his own. Despite the crushing debt he faced, Shiro felt a deep empathy. As Gerald was about to seize the property deed, Shiro intervened. Emile looked at him with hopeful eyes. Shiro then presented the bear pelt to Gerald, asking if he was interested in buying it. Before Emile could fully grasp the offer, Gerald, recognizing the rare brown bear pelt, grew eager and identified it as a valuable item. He quickly offered to buy it. Shiro didn't refuse but clarified that the pelt belonged to the society. He proposed lending it to Emile, allowing him to repay the debt with the proceeds. The leader of the group, standing beside them, chimed in, offering a similar deal with their own resources. Emile agreed to Gerald's offer, and they settled on a purchase price of 34 gold coins for all the items. Emile quickly added another 2 coins to the total, making it 36 gold coins, plus an additional 2 coins for the bear's testicles. This brought the deal to a close with a net profit of 26 gold coins after paying off the 10 gold coin debt. Having obtained what he wanted, Gerald removed his hat and backpack, expressing a desire for future collaboration with the group. He hoped that the Silver Moon Society would continue to thrive. With the deal finalized, he departed, leaving the 6 members inside the house. Emile turned to the leader and bowed his head in gratitude, but the leader deflected the thanks, suggesting that Shiro was the one who truly deserved it. After all, they were all members of the society. Instead of thanks, the leader proposed that Emile confirm their mission completion and pay them for their work. Feeling a bit deflated, Emile murmured about needing to confirm the mission right in front of Shiro. Shiro, puzzled, asked what the problem was with doing so, considering he was the one who hired them. How could the protection mission be confirmed without the client present? Sensing Emile's hesitation, the leader stepped closer, suspiciously questioning if the interim president was hiding something. He held out his hand, requesting 30 silver coins as payment for completing their mission. Shiro was surprised, recalling that he had paid 100 silver coins for the mission. The remaining 70 should have gone to the society. The atmosphere grew tense as Emile hesitated. Just as he was about to sneak away, the leader quickly grabbed his collar. The other members of Azure Sky readied their magic, preparing to teach him a lesson. Realizing he was in trouble, Emile immediately apologized and tried to escape, but the sound of explosions and his screams echoed continuously. Shiro felt a quiet relief that he hadn't brought Anna, knowing she would have been disappointed with the society's president. Returning to his shop after 3 days, Shiro was greeted by the sight of Anna cleaning the house. Hearing his arrival, she looked up excitedly and asked about his adventurous journey. Setting down his backpack, Shiro used vocabulary and gestures he had honed over 2 decades to vividly recount his thrilling experiences. Anna listened with wide-eyed enthusiasm, concluding that the last 3 days must have been incredibly intense. Anna's admiration grew as she learned about the impressive feat of taking down a giant gray bear. Even with Azure Sky's assistance, Shiro had played a crucial role in their victory. Their conversation was interrupted by a knock at the door. Shiro went to answer it, and before he could react, he found himself enveloped in a warm embrace from Karen. She hugged him so tightly that he struggled to breathe, leaving Anna, who stood nearby, looking concerned. Despite the lack of air, Shiro couldn't help but enjoy the feeling of Karen's affectionate embrace, even as he had to eventually pull away. Karen worriedly asked if Shiro had been hurt by the gray bear and if he had learned anything during his journey with the explorers. Shiro confidently replied that he had indeed learned a lot and mentioned that if they managed to restock in time, the town inspector would definitely be impressed. Karen, grinning, teased him about the restock and suggested he might have a storage space or a container with spatial capabilities. Initially, Shiro denied it but eventually admitted the truth after Karen's persistent questioning. He revealed that he was just bluffing, knowing it was rare for someone to possess such skills. Karen had guessed based on the numerous matchboxes he kept, showcasing the mayor's cunning understanding of matters. Shifting back to the main topic, Karen was curious about what Shiro planned to sell next, and Anna was equally interested. Shiro showed them a prototype of his upcoming product, leaving Karen amazed by its existence and contemplating its potential impact once released. Later in the afternoon, Liera and Neska visited Shiro's shop. Since their encounter with the gray bear, they had started dating. Liera mentioned that Emil had told him about an inspector from another guild coming to their town, hoping this would lead to the city's expansion with new branches. The inspector was from a reputable guild, raising hopes for the town's development. Shiro was taken aback to hear that the situation was even worse than he had thought. Liera, explaining the guild's reputation, mentioned that many guilds had notoriously bad reputations, citing examples like the 3 demon branches and the poisonous dragon fang. However, the most infamous one was the Labyrinth Raiders Guild. Shiro wondered if Karen knew about this guild's existence. Liera wasn't certain, but she suspected that Karen might be aware of them since only travelers or locals tend to know about such misconduct. Hearing this, Shiro pondered how this world, lacking smartphones and social media, allowed such crimes to continue unchecked. He dreaded the possibility that the worst of the travelers' guilds might come to survey the land, hoping that nothing bad would happen to Nino. Anna and Shiro had been waiting for the city inspector for quite some time, but there was still no sign of them. Anna wondered if they had gotten lost. Shiro doubted it, as there was only one straight road leading from here to the next town, and besides, Karen had already been waiting at the gate since yesterday. As the evening bell rang, Anna asked Shiro to close up early. He went to the door, bid her farewell, and decided to close the shop for the day. Just then, a beautiful woman arrived, expressing her desire to see the store. Shiro welcomed her and invited her to browse freely. The woman picked up a box of matches and examined it. Shiro approached to show her how to strike a match, noticing her eyes widen in surprise. Next to her was a silver box, and Shiro explained that it was a new product, a space blanket designed to warm the body. The woman immediately tried it on, draping it over her shoulders and marveling at this innovative item. The space blanket had already become a favorite among travelers, impressing even Karen. The woman was equally smitten with its thin yet incredibly warm design. There were also foldable water bottles and other innovative products. After trying out a few items, the woman left hastily, mentioning urgent matters, leaving Shiro curious but respectful of her privacy. A few days later, Anna burst in excitedly, calling out to Shiro that the inspector had arrived in town and was at the mayor's place. According to Karen's plan, the inspector was supposed to be given a tour of the town, including a stop at Shiro's shop for a discussion. However, the plan had fallen apart, and now everyone was gathered at the Silver Moon Society. The mayor had sent Dana to fetch Shiro as quickly as possible. Upon Shiro's arrival, Karen whispered to him that the inspector seemed a bit odd and advised him to be cautious. Shiro exchanged a calm, understanding look with Karen, her eyes subtly conveying her manipulative expertise. Karen seized the moment to introduce Shiro to the inspector, Gavies, proudly declaring him as the town's pride and a distinguished merchant. Anna, standing nearby, chimed in, introducing herself as a store employee. Inspector Gavies barely acknowledged the introductions, his body language dismissive. With a sneer, he commented mockingly about the shop's only employee being a child, expressing his disdain as he ran a finger over a perfectly clean table, clearly looking for something to criticize. He criticized the building for being dirty and accused Emil, the cleaning officer, of laziness. This baseless criticism enraged Emil, who had painstakingly cleaned the area. Gavies seemed to enjoy the turmoil he caused, laughing loudly and suggesting that the shop's chaos was their own fault. He then turned to Keela, a half-human, half-beast worker, belittling her inefficiency and callously commenting that her presence was a waste of effort. Emil's anger flared, and he was on the verge of attacking when Karen quickly intervened. Karen calmly asked Gavies if he had seen the items sold in Shiro's shop. In response, Gavies nonchalantly struck a match, casually tossed it to the floor, and slumped in his chair. With an air of arrogance, he announced that the Labyrinth Raiders Guild intended to establish a branch in their town. However, his announcement came with several outrageous conditions. First, he demanded that the new branch be the only guild allowed in the town. Second, it must be completely exempt from taxes. He further stipulated that the town's residents, under Karen's leadership, should bear the entire cost of constructing the guild building. But the boldest demand was yet to come. Gavies expressed his desire to have exclusive privileges in Shiro's shop, allowing him to acquire and sell items for free. Shiro met this with a piercing, emotionless stare, which Gavies misinterpreted as incomprehension, preparing to mock him. However, Karen swiftly stepped in to negotiate. She acknowledged the potential benefits the guild's presence could bring to the town, but expressed concerns about their proposed monopoly. Before she could fully articulate her point, Gavies impatiently interrupted, explaining that the guild planned to buy all the matches and resell them nationwide, promising immense profits. He justified his demands by claiming that selling to them was equivalent to selling to the entire country. Hearing these terms, Shiro paused to reflect. The offer was indeed tempting. But the tempting offer didn't sway Shiro. He firmly declined, stating their stock was already maxed out. Karen also disagreed, expressing her desire to renegotiate the terms from the beginning with Gavies. Gavies, visibly sweating, grew increasingly angry. In a fit of rage, he grabbed a bottle of wine from the table and hurled it against the wall behind Karen, mocking the town as a pathetic place inhabited only by weak, useless travelers. Shiro quickly countered, pointing out that Nina Rich still boasted rare monsters, plants, and metals in the eastern forest. This potential made many travelers consider settling there permanently. He questioned if this wasn't enough to warrant opening a branch. Far from being appeased, Gavies became even more furious. He grabbed Shiro's collar, shouting that only fools would wallow in a slum like this. He claimed that those who couldn't compete in big cities ended up hiding in such a run-down place. The tension skyrocketed, with everyone's anger reaching a boiling point. Gavies continued to assert that with the guild's investment, the town would thrive, but it all hinged on Shiro's decision. Seeing Shiro's hesitation, Gavies hurled more insults, suggesting that if Shiro agreed to collaborate, they would hire better staff than the weaklings they currently had. This infuriated Shiro, whose eyes widened in shock. When Gavies repeated his demeaning remarks about the current staff, calling them a bunch of useless fools, dogs, and half-beasts, Shiro realized further discussion was pointless. He refused to back down. In a flash, he punched Gavies square in the face, yelling at him to get out, calling him a dead dog. The incident reminded Shiro of a similar situation he encountered in the modern world. Back then, he had asked for leave from a corrupt company and ended up punching his boss, who had been berating a colleague who had helped him a lot. The boss's face and attitude bore a striking resemblance to Gavies, triggering Shiro's violent response. People around Shiro watched him with admiration. Karen added that Gavies had also slightly touched his chest. Shiro glared at the inspector and then stepped forward, grabbing his hair. Panic spread among the onlookers, with pleas for mercy and loud cries echoing endlessly. The roars from the Celestial Voice Group also joined in, adding to the cacophony. In no time, Inspector Gavies lay on the ground, closing his swollen eyes. Purple saliva sprayed as Gavies lay defeated. Meanwhile, Shiro stood with his head bowed. Despite his distaste for violence, Gavies had crossed the line by insulting his employees and exploiting Karen's hospitality for his own gain. Shiro couldn't stand by and tolerate such disrespect. Anna, moved by his actions, rushed to Shiro and hugged him, crying uncontrollably. Somehow, Gavies found the strength to get up. He hurled insults at Shiro, threatening that as a high-ranking member of the Labyrinth Raiders Guild, he would make Shiro and the entire town pay. Karen stepped forward resolutely, informing Gavies that his actions could be seen as a declaration of war against the town. If that were the case, she, as mayor, would have to report this to Margrave, the regional governor of Bashir. Hearing this, Gavies began to sweat profusely, stammering in fear and realizing the gravity of his words. With a softer tone, he suggested to Shiro that if he handed over the rights to the matches, they could pretend the incident never happened. Enraged, Shiro grabbed Gavies and shouted that he had no interest in doing business with them and would kick them out if they dared to come to his shop. Gavies, desperate, begged to buy the rights at any cost. But seeing Shiro unmoved, he turned to Karen, trying to continue the discussion about opening a branch in the town. Karen, now disgusted by his behavior, also refused. Liar couldn't contain his laughter, finding humor in Gavies's desperate situation. Humiliated and angry, Gavies insulted Liar as a low-class traveler. This was the final straw for Liar, who had endured Gavies's repeated insults. He quickly approached Gavies and grabbed him by the neck, lifting him off the ground. Shiro intervened, reminding Liar that violence wasn't the answer, even though he himself had just beaten Gavies. Reluctantly, Liar dropped Gavies to the ground. Hitting the trash would only dirty his hands. Inspector Gavies, terrified, crawled towards the main door. Everyone was on edge after the failed negotiation. Karen advised everyone not to dwell on the unpleasant encounter with the arrogant inspector. Suddenly, there was a knock on the door. Thinking Gavies had returned, a brave Liar went to open it, fists ready, but was met by a beautiful young woman. She bowed to everyone and mentioned she had rushed over after hearing the mayor was present because she had an urgent matter to discuss. Shiro recognized her as the woman who had visited his shop several times recently. She introduced herself as Nei Mirage, a member of the Blessing Fair Guild. Everyone was surprised, as the Blessing Fair was the largest guild in the country. Karen, suspicious, asked about her intentions. Nei smiled and explained that the guild was interested in collaborating with the town to open a new branch and wondered what the mayor thought about it. Everyone was taken aback by Keela's proposal. Suspecting it might be a trap, Nei sighed deeply before turning to Keela with sudden enthusiasm, asking if he was a member of the guild. Nei explained that if they used their guild as a branch of the Fair Blessings Guild, they could expect significant profits, at least 5 times more than their current earnings. Keela, immediately changing his stance, stepped back from Nei with newfound respect and agreed to the proposal. He even turned to Karen to persuade her to accept this beneficial deal, a complete reversal from his initial skepticism. Karen was still hesitant and asked for Shiro's opinion. He suggested they hear more from Nei before making a decision. The group moved to Keela's office, where Shiro, Karen, and Nei sat facing each other. Shiro inquired why Nei's guild was interested in opening a branch in Nino. Nei explained that a few days earlier, a teenager from their guild had discovered a dungeon map of the area, seemingly crafted by an ancient magical civilization. This unprecedented discovery was dubbed the Find of the Century. Crucially, these ruins were located right here, in the Western Forest, with countless sites like ancient kingdoms, labyrinths, and temples. Hearing about this potential, Karen stood up excitedly, almost unable to believe it. She realized that the Labyrinth Raiders' desire to set up a branch here was likely because they also knew about this discovery and wanted to monopolize it. Usually, they would use force, but this time they were denied, so Nei, representing the Fair Blessings Guild, came to negotiate with the intent to use all their resources to explore the sites. The reason for choosing Nino Rich was Shiro's shop. Nei had seen the items sold there and was impressed, believing it would greatly benefit their guild. Therefore, he hoped Shiro would consider opening another shop within their guild. Karen pondered for a moment before asking Nei about the conditions the Fair Blessings Guild would require if they opened a branch in Nino. Nei was initially surprised but became furious when Shiro explained the demands made by Inspector Gabbus. Nei was shocked that Gabbus, after securing the rights to open a branch, dared to make such outrageous demands, not to mention his harassment and sexual misconduct. However, when it came to the Fair Blessings Guild, Ney's demeanor remained calm. He explained that their guild, fully owned by the Silver Moon Society, would agree to the terms to start their business without constructing new structures. However, their staff would need accommodations for meals and rest, which they could finance by building an inn and renting the necessary equipment. Karen found this offer too appealing to resist. Clearing her throat, she stood and extended her hand, declaring that Nino Rich would be honored to collaborate with Ney's guild. Nei was equally delighted to have successfully completed his mission. With that, the previously inactive Silver Moon Society transformed into the largest branch in the country, blessed by the Fair Blessings Guild. It was a spectacular turnaround for everyone involved. Anna, a young and naive girl, lived a simple yet happy life with her small family of 3. At just 4 years old, she enjoyed the comfort of their modest home with her loving parents. However, a dark and ominous day shattered their peace. Their village was engulfed in the fiery chaos of war. Ferocious red flames consumed everything, turning their cherished home and Anna's treasured toys into ashes. The scene was heart-wrenching, but the most painful part for the little girl was watching her father leave to fulfill his duty as a soldier, a responsibility expected of every citizen. 2 years passed, and her father had yet to return. Now 6 years old, Anna's world was forever changed by the absence of her beloved parent. Anna's mother told her they needed to move to another town. Anna protested, fearing that if her father returned and couldn't find them, he would be heartbroken. Seeing her daughter's distress, Anna's mother could only offer silent hugs and tears. Eventually, they left their old home and, after crossing many borders, arrived in Nino. When asked why she chose such a remote place, Anna's mother explained it was because the war wouldn't reach there. She didn't want anyone else to leave. Living in the border town wasn't easy, and ensuring her daughter had enough to eat was a constant struggle. Anna's mother ate as little as possible to save food for her. In their second year in Nino, Anna's mother fell gravely ill and apologized for not being able to provide for her. Anna blamed herself, feeling like a burden. She cried a lot but realized it wouldn't help unless she grew up. Determined, she placed her favorite toy in front of the mirror, looked at her reflection, and made a significant decision. Using their meager savings, she obtained a permit to sell flowers at the market. From dawn to dusk, Anna covered every corner of Nino Rich. One day, she met a kind stranger who not only bought many flowers but also offered her a good job. Anna always expressed her gratitude to God whenever she could. The day she received her first paycheck of 10 silver coins was monumental. She had long thought about how she would spend it. For Anna, this amount of money was vast, and it was the first time she had ever seen so much wealth. Despite facing hardships from a young age, Anna maintained a simple faith. When a group of travelers claimed to possess a miraculous cure, Anna, without any hesitation, spent all her savings, hoping it would heal her mother. Unfortunately, no miracle occurred, and her mother's condition remained unchanged. This left Anna feeling desperate and clueless about how to cure her mother's illness. She realized that money was the key. Only with sufficient funds could she take her mother to the city for proper treatment. Determined to find a solution, Anna turned to Shiro, hoping he could save her from this predicament. She was willing to endure any hardship and perform even the most exhausting tasks if it meant helping her mother recover. Contrary to her expectations, Shiro did not take advantage of her desperation. Instead, he offered a gentle smile, softly patting her head and showing his understanding of her struggle. Liar, however, couldn't maintain his composure. Furious, he punched the wall, venting his anger at the con artists who sold the fake medicine to Anna. He vowed to find them and deliver not just 10 but 100 punches in retribution. Nesca tried to calm Liar, preventing further destruction. Ralph approached Anna more directly, explaining that the medicine she bought was a scam and couldn't cure her mother's illness. He mentioned that while there were remedies for detoxification and wound healing, no medicine existed that could cure all ailments. Anna, clinging to a shred of hope, argued that the travelers had convinced her the treatment would improve her mother's condition. Ralph patiently told her she had been deceived. The realization that she had been tricked echoed painfully in Anna's mind, leaving her in stunned silence. Tears streamed down Anna's face as she regretted wasting her hard-earned savings on a scam. Shiro couldn't bear to see her distress and turned away, while Liar's rage boiled over. In a fit of anger, he kicked a glass door, shattering it. He declared to Ralph his intent to hunt down the con artists and exact revenge. Ralph, Keela, and Nesca volunteered to join Liar on his quest for justice. While Liar and his group prepared to track down the scammers, Shiro, Karen, and Ralph visited Anna's home to check on her mother. During their walk, Ralph explained to Shiro about the serious illness affecting Anna's mother, known as the rot. This disease, as described by some travelers, caused limbs to decay gradually, weakening the afflicted and often proving terminal. Scholars were uncertain about its contagious nature or why it struck. Upon reaching Anna's home, they were struck by the realization of the little girl's daily struggle. A somber silence filled the air. Anna, brimming with enthusiasm, opened the door and welcomed them in. She led Shiro inside, where they found a small, modest room with a bed and a few essentials. Lying there was Stella, Anna's frail and weak mother. She introduced herself to Shiro, expressing her deep gratitude for all the help he had given Anna. Stella tried to sit up, feeling it was inappropriate to remain in bed while receiving guests. However, Shiro gently insisted she stay lying down and rest. Anna then introduced the other woman in the room as the town's mayor, Karen. Stella was visibly shocked and questioned why the mayor would visit their humble home. Ralph stepped in to explain that they had come after hearing about her illness. Stella apologized for the inconvenience, but Mayor Karen insisted it was she who should apologize, expressing her regret for not being able to do more for her citizens. Stella responded gratefully, noting how lucky the town was to have such considerate outsiders. She was surprised to hear about the many friends Anna had made, including the mayor, Shiro, Ralph, and others. Stella felt a sense of relief and gratitude for her daughter's fortunate social connections. Guessing that her mother might be hungry, Anna decided to cook a meal. She prepared soup for everyone with Ralph's help in the kitchen, leaving Karen, Shiro, and Stella alone in the room. Stella gently requested a private word with Shiro. Once alone, she voiced a deep concern that had been weighing on her mind. Although it felt imposing, she asked Shiro if he could take care of Anna after her death. Shiro was taken aback by Stella's unexpected request. She continued, apologizing for her bluntness, but explained that her time was running short and she assumed Shiro had heard about her illness from Anna. Stella asked if Anna had cried while talking about it. Shiro hesitantly confirmed this, and Stella's expression grew even sadder. She knew Anna must have cried, despite trying her best to remain strong. Anna felt powerless in her inability to save her mother. Stella felt responsible as Anna's mother, regretting that she couldn't take better care of her daughter. It pained her even more to know that Anna often forced herself to smile just to avoid worrying her. However, recently something had changed. Anna began to genuinely smile whenever she talked about Shiro, seeing him as a kind older brother figure. Stella now understood why those feelings reminded her of Anna's father. She admitted that the first time she saw Shiro, she was startled, almost believing her long-lost partner had returned. Shiro, surprised and moved, apologized to Stella. She trembled slightly, her memory of her husband fading. However, Shiro's presence helped her remember his face clearly, comforting her with the thought that finding him in the afterlife might not be far off. Gathering her strength, Stella shakily stood and moved toward Shiro. Her legs wobbled, barely supporting her. She begged him to look after Anna, fearing for the young girl's vulnerability and inevitable tears. Anna was only 8 years old and would be lost without her. As Stella reached her limit, she collapsed in front of Shiro. He quickly caught her, reassuring her and gently placing her back on the bed. Shiro then made an unusual request. He asked for permission to touch Stella's legs. Though surprised and somewhat embarrassed, Stella trusted him, knowing he meant no harm. She closed her eyes and agreed. Facing Stella sitting on the bed, Shiro knelt in front of her, gently lifting and examining her legs. It seemed like he might know what was causing her illness. Filled with joy, Shiro excitedly told Stella that he might have found the cause and cure for her disease. His uncle's disease had worse symptoms than hers. Now that Shiro was confident he could heal her, Stella began to cry. The years of pain and suffering she had endured were overwhelming. She clutched Shiro's hand tightly, admitting she wasn't ready to die because she didn't want to leave Anna alone. The hope in Shiro's eyes shone brightly as he held Stella's hand reassuringly. Just then, the door opened, and Karen peeked in to see if their conversation was finished. She mentioned that Anna and Ralph had finished preparing the meal. Shiro tensed up, turning to face the three people at the door, realizing how intimate his position with Stella might seem. As Shiro recalled the scene, a headache began to brew, but he was grateful for Stella's clear explanation, which saved him from any misunderstanding. After lunch, Shiro gave a lecture about the disease called rot in their world, pointing to a silhouette of a human on the board. He explained that in his homeland, this disease was known as beriberi, caused by a nutritional deficiency. It's a frightening disease because it can lead to paralysis, but it's also easily cured with the right intake of vitamins. Anna eagerly asked if there was really a cure that could save her mother's life. Shiro confirmed its existence and then stepped out, opening a portal between two worlds. He entered a room with an altar, knelt down, and remembered his grandmother's words, reminding him to help those in need whenever he could. Shiro then converted foreign currency into Japanese yen using an equivalent exchange rate. A few moments later, he handed a box of medicine to Stella, explaining that although the pills might look strange, they could cure the disease known as rot. Karen and Ralph were skeptical about the safety of the orange pills. Stella assumed they must be very expensive, but Shiro reassured her, saying she didn't need to worry about the cost and explaining his payment plan. Since Shiro arrived in the town, Anna had been incredibly helpful to him, and now it was his turn to help her. Overwhelmed with emotion, Anna clung to Shiro's hand, tears streaming down her face. A month later, during another visit to Stella's home, Anna and Shiro were overjoyed to see that Stella could now take a few steps. Anna's voice trembled with emotion as she asked her mother if she was really walking again. Stella confirmed she was getting stronger every day and that her full recovery was only a matter of time. Anna, barely able to contain her emotions, asked if she could sleep beside her mother now that she was better. With a mix of reluctance and affection, Stella agreed, promising they would sleep together that night. Unable to hold back any longer, Anna ran to her mother, hugged her tightly, and cried. It had been a long time since she could hug her mother with such strength, maybe not since the disease first took hold. From now on, they would always be together. Shiro was deeply moved by the scene, tears welling up in his eyes. Silently, he closed the door to give mother and daughter their privacy. Stepping outside, he felt a sense of pride, knowing he could now tell his grandmother that he had truly helped someone in need. She would be proud of him. Shiro sat on the balcony of the building, reflecting on the events of the past 2 months. On this beautiful day, Anna's mother had fully recovered after taking the vitamin supplements. Anna was overjoyed, sharing that they had stayed up late talking, leading to little sleep. Her mother had cooked vegetable soup and many other dishes, and Anna had picked flowers for her. They even had a friendly competition, making each other laugh. Shiro couldn't help but laugh too, happy to see Anna so joyful, as an 8-year-old girl should be. Meanwhile, the Silver Moon Society had officially joined forces with the Fairy Blessing Guild as a leading branch. The Azure Sky team would operate under their banner. More travelers were showing up, eager to explore the vast forest. Shiro had earned nearly 500 million yen in the last 2 months. At this rate, he thought, he might be able to retire after just 1 year of hard work. Lost in thoughts of a future where he wouldn't have to work anymore, Shiro didn't notice Karen sneaking up behind him. Playfully, she asked what was on his mind. Startled, Shiro turned to find the smiling mayor greeting him warmly. She asked what he was drinking and told him it was a special liquor from her hometown, offering him a taste. Unable to refuse, the two soon found themselves tipsy and laughing heartily. Shiro, his face flushed, eventually rested his head on Karen's lap. Karen, clearly drunk, began to speak from the heart, thanking Shiro for everything he had done for the town. She earnestly told him that if he ever needed anything, he should not hesitate to ask. Shiro, sitting up, insisted that what he did was simply his duty and nothing worthy of such gratitude. He shared how he was raised by his grandmother, who always taught him to help those in need, believing that when in trouble, others would support him too. Karen admired Shiro's values and curiously asked the name of his grandmother. Shiro smiled and revealed it was Arisu-gu. Karen repeated the name, then asked in surprise if Shiro was the grandson of the legendary Arisu. Shiro was taken aback to hear that Karen knew her. Karen explained that Arisu was a famous figure across the continent, though few had seen her in person. Karen recounted meeting the wizard during the Harvest Festival last year, where Arisu appeared, joyfully dancing in the town while drunk. She remembered Arisu performing the Maipon star spell, made from fragments of stars she had gathered under the clear night sky. Shiro motioned for Karen to pause, needing a moment to absorb the flood of information. He recalled reading in one of his grandmother's old books about a wizard named Ruo from 80 years ago, which was around the time his grandmother was born. Karen, intrigued, asked what he thought about the Maipon spell. Shiro reminisced about his childhood, remembering his grandmother showing him a photo of her favorite actor, Mel Gibson. This connection could explain the mysterious spell, revealing that the person behind it was indeed his grandmother. Karen continued to express her amazement that Shiro's grandmother was a famous wizard. No wonder he possessed so many unusual items. Shiro mentioned that it had been 7 years since he last saw her. Moving to the balcony railing, he shouted loudly, declaring that his grandmother was still alive. His voice echoed through the mountains, affirming his words. The day before, after discovering that the famous wizard Arisu was indeed his grandmother, Shiro felt a mix of excitement and longing. Karen, noticing his eagerness, suggested he wait until the Harvest Festival to seek her out, as Arisu often made appearances at its conclusion. This year marked the festival's 120th anniversary, and Karen planned to make it special. With 2 months to go, she asked Shiro for help with some of the festival preparations. Shiro, who loved festivals, decided to put his quest to find his grandmother on hold and immediately agreed to help Karen. He also saw potential business opportunities with food stalls during the festival. Traditional attractions like raffles, goldfish scooping, and shooting targets seemed overdone and might not draw much attention. He needed something more unique. Frustrated, Shiro racked his brain for childhood memories that might spark an idea. Suddenly, inspiration struck. The next day, several cameras were laid out on a table, piquing Anna's curiosity. Shiro explained that these were no ordinary cameras, but a remarkable invention he had prepared. Seeing her confusion, he began to demonstrate how they worked. Shiro demonstrated the camera to Anna by taking her picture. When the camera clicked and the image appeared, Anna was initially shocked, stuttering in disbelief and wondering if she had shrunk and was trapped inside. Shiro chuckled and explained that the camera was like a magical device that captured images instantly. He took a few more photos of her, which she examined with delight. Anna then tried taking a photo of Shiro. Despite it being her first time using a camera, she managed to capture a beautiful shot that she loved. Pointing to another device nearby, Anna asked what it was. Shiro explained it was a Polaroid camera. Intrigued, Anna admired its variety, and to test it, Shiro snapped a candid photo of Anna when she wasn't paying attention, capturing a funny expression on her face. In a playful revenge, Anna started taking unflattering pictures of Shiro. Amused by this feature, Anna thought of her grandmother and remarked, "Like grandmother, like grandson." Their playful moment was interrupted when Stella entered the room, beaming with a smile and thanking Shiro for looking after Anna all day. Anna rushed to hug her mother, asking if she was tired from the recent cleaning. They were living in a house Shiro had rented for them, just a 10-minute walk from his shop. Playfully, Anna accused her mother of being a terrible cleaner, making Stella laugh. Shiro offered his help, but Anna hesitated, admitting that he wasn't very good at cleaning either. Amused by their embarrassment, they all shared a meal together. Afterward, They said their goodbyes, with Shiro promising to meet them again soon as he headed back to his shop. The adventurers of Silver Moon had joined the Fair Blessing Association as a branch, transforming their tranquil days into a whirlwind of activity. In just 2 months, they had become some of the busiest people in the kingdom of Giller. Shiro visited the Silver Moon headquarters, and as soon as he walked in, Emile saw him and waved playfully, asking if he was there to finally acknowledge her or give her a lavish gift. Shiro rolled his eyes at Emile's teasing, explaining that he was there simply because they had planned to have dinner together. But Emile seemed to have other ideas, lost in her own fantasy. She declared she was ready to be his wife at any moment, imagining them riding a noble dragon and scattering coins as she spoke. Emile started unbuttoning her shirt, causing Shiro to panic and shout for her to stop. Unfazed, she climbed onto the table, gazing at him longingly. It was lunchtime, but Emile had a different idea of how to spend it. Shiro found himself cornered against a wall with no escape, forcing him to grab Emile's hands and push her away. Despite this, Emile seemed too used to Shiro's reactions to be deterred. She moved closer, her lips puckering for a kiss. Shiro broke into a sweat, terrified. Just as Shiro thought he was going to lose his first kiss, Keela appeared, delivering a swift kick that separated them. Shiro was so relieved he nearly cried. Later, at the bar, Keela had to console him. The approaching full moon season made the rabbit folk more restless than usual, but Ralph and Nesket were determined not to let that affect them. Emile's aggressive advances on Shiro were not a sign of a healthy relationship. Shiro, nearly shivering with anger, burst out, demanding to know why she couldn't leave him alone. No one wanted to be left alone like that, especially when a heated argument broke out at the next table and quickly escalated into a physical fight. Spectators began placing bets on the outcome of the brawl, and Shiro was about to step in to stop it. However, a liar held him back, explaining that fights were common among adventurers like them. The best of the best had gathered here, seeking ancient relics since the place became a branch of the Fairy Blessing Association 2 months ago. With no significant finds, frustration was building up in Nino Rich, where there were no outlets for entertainment or venting anger. Fights were a regular occurrence until they were settled. Just then, the door swung open, and the guild leader entered, commanding silence. He coldly announced that no one was allowed to cause trouble in his association. Everyone scattered, and the 2 fighters reluctantly stopped and left. Enei approached Shiro's table, greeting him sternly. She then turned to Emile, who was hiding under the table, demanding to know why she didn't stop the fight. Without waiting for an explanation, Enei dragged Emile away for a private reprimand. With the area finally quiet, the liar revealed something important to Shiro. The previous week, their group had encountered an unusual flower they had never seen before and thought Shiro might know something about it. Shiro suggested they go together to the flower's location for a closer inspection, provided the group ensured its protection from any animals. The liar agreed firmly, stating that their group was much more capable now. They raised their glasses to celebrate their collaboration. Shiro joined the Azure Sky group on an expedition to the forest to search for the peculiar flower they had discovered. They stumbled upon a meadow filled with fresh blossoms and decided to lie down and enjoy the serene beauty. Shiro felt a pang of regret that Anna wasn't there to see it, knowing how much she loved unique flora. Just as Nesca was about to take a nap, the leader urged everyone to get moving before sunset, suggesting they could rest all they wanted afterward. A week earlier, the group had found a flower called Abzera while searching for relics. This rare plant was a key ingredient for crafting high-level recovery potions, and they had harvested it. However, just a few hours into their journey back, all the flowers wilted. Nesca tried to preserve them with water and magic to maintain a stable temperature, but it was in vain. They couldn't bring the flowers to an alchemist in time, and as the group was about to give up, Liar remembered Shiro's storage space that could carry items without adding weight and suspend time for the items inside. Liar trusted Shiro to help them. After securing enough flowers, the group suddenly sensed something approaching. It was a swarm of flies, each with wounds on their backs. Based on Ralph's speculation, the amount of blood lost indicated they had just fought a formidable enemy. Without further hesitation, Liar ordered Ralph to protect Shiro while Nesca quickly cast a fire spell. The flies found the group and launched a fierce attack. Shiro ran behind Ralph for protection while Nesca and Keela effectively teamed up, noticing the monster's fear of fire. Shiro bravely ran forward, pulling a can of pepper spray from his bag. Ralph advised against using it, explaining that pepper spray wouldn't be effective. However, Shiro had a different plan in mind. He lit a fire in front of the pepper spray and aimed it at the monsters, creating an improvised flamethrower. Ralph was stunned by Shiro's ingenuity and quickly killed a weakened fly with a sword slash, causing blood to splatter everywhere. Even Liar turned in admiration at Shiro's tactics. With only 6 flies remaining, Shiro was confident they could overcome this challenge. The situation turned perilous when 2 of the largest flies targeted Nesca, making it impossible to use their previous tactics without risking her safety. Shiro dashed to protect her, but as expected, one of the flies slashed at him with its sharp legs. Following Liar's urgent shout, Shiro sprinted towards the nearest river, the monster still clinging to him, and took a desperate leap. The fly finally let go, but the river was deep, and Shiro couldn't swim. He began to sink, his hand the only thing visible above the water. Liar yelled desperately, vowing to search for Shiro along the riverbank, unaware if Shiro could hear him. Eventually, Shiro awoke, coughing up water and feeling disoriented. In front of him stood a peculiar girl, looking annoyed with a curious stare. Shiro realized she was a fairy, a sight he had never encountered before. As she revealed herself to be a fairy, Shiro immediately became alert. It was his first time seeing a fairy. The tiny, annoyed fairy seemed embarrassed by his gaze. She questioned why Shiro had fallen into the water and realized she had saved him from becoming fish food. Confused, Shiro recounted the entire incident to the fairy. After listening, she couldn't help but laugh at the absurdity of Shiro's predicament. When Shiro mentioned he was from Nino Rich, a human town, the fairy expressed her desire to accompany him. Curious, Shiro asked why she wanted to accompany him. The fairy shyly revealed that she had a close friend in Nino Rich. She described her friend as a bit shorter and more energetic than Shiro, always cheerful, with sky-blue eyes and bright hair. She then asked if Shiro knew this person. Shiro scratched his head, puzzled. He pointed out that without a name, it would be difficult to identify anyone, as many people could fit that description. Unfortunately, she didn't know the name either, only referring to him as the human, since he was the only human she had ever met. She speculated that he might be an adventurer or a hunter since they had met in the forest while hunting monsters. Finding their forest encounter quite romantic, Shiro asked if they were lovers. Embarrassed, she quickly clarified that they were just friends, or maybe something more, but insisted that fairies and humans couldn't fall in love. Shiro guessed they must be best friends and asked if she knew the forest well. Proudly, she confirmed she was raised in the Jig Forest. Shiro decided to take her to Nino Rich on the condition that she guide him through the northern forest. After a moment of surprise, she agreed, promising to protect him until they reached their destination. To demonstrate her skills, she performed a wind slice, effortlessly cutting down several large trees with a single swift motion that was too quick to see. Shiro turned pale, but she shyly admitted she wasn't very good at controlling her power. However, she assured him that as long as she was strong, everything would be fine. As she shooed away a swarm of flies from the area, Shiro noticed an enemy that had injured the monster flies. The enemy was none other than Patty, who introduced herself as Patty Fulu. She declared herself the leader of their journey. Shiro playfully suggested calling her boss instead. Patty happily accepted, and Shiro enthusiastically shouted, "Yes, boss," which made Patty blush. Jokingly, Shiro added that he could even act like those who flatter their lady boss. Seeing Patty's annoyance, Shiro playfully suggested he act like a gang leader, but he also enjoyed her company. So, he proposed they play as a king and his servant. They spent the evening laughing and playing around, and before they knew it, night had fallen. Sitting by the fire, Shiro shared stories about his friends with Patty. She asked if he truly wanted to return to them, and Shiro confirmed he did, as his teammates were likely searching for him. Patty resolved to help Shiro find his friends, pushing aside her obvious concerns to consider their boss-employee dynamic. Patty then asked if Shiro was hungry and casually opened her personal storage space, ready to share a meal. As Patty chewed on an apple and rummaged through her storage, she noticed Shiro's surprised expression. She assumed he had never seen such a storage space before, explaining that fairies like her often had such abilities. Finally, Patty pulled out a flask and handed it to Shiro, saying it would warm him up. Shiro eagerly took a sip, delighted by the taste. Patty, seeing his enjoyment, tasked him with finishing the drink before bed, promising to keep watch for the night. The flask contained a sweet liquor that left Shiro feeling a bit tipsy. He thanked the fairy and quickly fell asleep. The next morning, at dawn, Patty perched on Shiro's head, guiding him towards the northern forest. She chatted endlessly about the various species of fairies, including shepherd fairies, demon fairies, and a powerful elf fairy in a nearby village. Shiro, exhausted and gasping for air, asked his boss, Patty, if they could take a break. Patty, slightly annoyed by Shiro's weakness, reluctantly agreed to let him rest while she continued talking. She lectured about the peculiar baboona flower beside them, explaining how it was often mistaken for another species. Shiro sighed, mentally summarizing Patty's endless stories. Apparently, long before Patty was born, there was once a kingdom called Jig in this area. Now, it had fallen and turned into the Jigaina forest. Curious, Shiro asked Patty if the kingdom existed during the era of ancient magic. She admitted she didn't know, as it was before her time. Suddenly, the sound of footsteps echoed nearby. Realizing they were human, Patty ordered Shiro to hide immediately. They both concealed themselves in the bushes. The footsteps grew louder until 4 figures appeared, frantically searching for Shiro. Among them was Lyre, who was crying and calling out Shiro's name, hoping he hadn't fallen off a waterfall and died. Nesca stood beside him, hitting him with a stone and scolding him for bringing bad luck. Unfazed, Lyre looked up, tears streaming down his face, and asked if Shiro was still alive. Nesca smiled, patting Lyre's head reassuringly, while Keela bounced around in search of Shiro, confident he was still alive. Meanwhile, Shiro, hiding nearby, felt the urge to rush out and call to them. He glanced at the fairy beside him, wondering what to do next. Shiro disagreed with Patty's decision, chastising him for making noise. Smiling at Patty, he reassured her that the people approaching were his close friends and teammates. He then signaled his location and dashed towards the group. The team rejoiced upon finding Shiro, but Keela was nowhere to be seen. She had been snatched by a giant bird. In the excitement of seeing Shiro, Keela thrashed and kicked until the bird released her, causing her to fall. Shiro managed to catch her just in time. The cat-like girl lay on top of him, crying with relief, having feared she had lost him. After calming her down, they both stood up, and the 3 others rushed over. Lyre began by apologizing, lamenting their failure to protect Shiro from the monster. Nesca thanked Shiro for saving her and vowed to repay the favor. Shiro, feeling overwhelmed by their attention, assured them that he was safe and happy to be reunited with his team. The trials of the past no longer mattered. Shiro wondered aloud if they truly saw him as part of the team with all their formalities. They all shouted in unison that it wasn't the case. Shiro then revealed it was a miracle he survived, thanks to someone else. He pointed towards his savior, who was hiding behind a tree, a tiny figure named Petty, floating in the air. The group's faces turned skeptical and cautious. Nesca mentioned that seeing a fairy was extremely rare, often dismissed as mere imagination. She added that fairies were never supposed to be seen by ordinary people. Shiro turned to ask Petty about this. Petty admitted that even after leaving her village, she was still bound by certain rules, and quickly hid behind Shiro's head. Hearing about the group called the Blessed Fairies, Petty angrily questioned why fairies would bless humans. Shiro laughed, saying he wasn't sure, but maybe in some other place, fairies did things like that. Listening to their conversation, the group explained that the term Blessed Fairies referred to legendary fairies who made honey wine. Shiro immediately remembered the sweet, delicious drink Petty had given him. Upon hearing this, Nesca, shocked, grabbed Petty's shirt to confirm the story. Not only Nesca, but everyone was shocked to learn that Shiro had tasted fairy honey wine. Liar exclaimed that the wine was so valuable that a small glass could buy a castle, and the last recorded sale was over 200 years ago. Shiro was terrified, while Petty casually mentioned she gave him the wine because he was her subordinate. As the group grew more curious about this boss-subordinate relationship, Shiro had to explain the whole story. Knowing the fairy's name now, everyone warmly welcomed her. Liar, with a friendly expression, thanked Petty for saving Shiro and offered their help if she ever needed it. Suddenly, Shiro remembered something and mentioned Liar's offer, stating that Petty was looking for a friend. They could use this opportunity to repay her. Liar asked who they were searching for, and Shiro described the person with blue eyes and hair, possibly a hunter or an astronaut. This confused everyone, but Shiro assured them that they would eventually find this person. Now, with everyone reunited, they felt more confident about their mission. They began their journey back to Nino. After a long day of traveling together, they neared their destination. Petty spotted the city from a distance and eagerly pointed it out to Shiro, calling it a human village. Nesca corrected her, explaining that it was a city and how places are categorized based on their size. Petty, fascinated, perched on Shiro's head, urging him to move faster. The group laughed heartily, joking about the challenges of being her subordinate. As they entered the city, Shiro noticed a figure waiting in the distance. It was Anna, with a worried expression, anxiously awaiting his return. Overwhelmed with relief upon seeing him, she ran and hugged him, tears streaming down her face. Stella, Anna's mother, appeared shortly after, explaining that Anna couldn't sleep the previous night, worrying about him facing dangers on the road. Together, they all headed home, clearly exhausted from lack of rest. Anna, looking tired, fell asleep on her mother's shoulder as they walked. Shiro asked Stella if she was all right. Though Stella was breathing heavily, she insisted on carrying her daughter, believing she could manage a bit longer. Shiro understood and reminded her to let him know if it became too much. Usually, Anna was very considerate, but she must have been exhausted. Otherwise, she wouldn't have let her mother, who had just recovered from an illness, carry her. After seeing them home, Shiro returned to his place. Entering his house, Petty excitedly flew around, admiring its size. Shiro asked how fairies lived, and Petty explained they built homes high in the trees, safe from monsters. She playfully nudged his shoulder, reminding him of their mission. Shiro assured her they would find her friend in the city, planning to start their search the next day. Remembering the honey wine, Shiro asked if it was really hard to make. Petty thought it was easy, only requiring honey, but getting the honey was the hardest part. She told him about being stung by a swarm of bees just to get a little. Shiro rummaged through his bag and handed a jar to Petty, asking if it was enough. At first, Petty didn't understand what he was doing. Then, realizing what he had given her, she gasped, staring at the jar of honey with wide eyes. Shiro explained that it was 100% pure honey from a farm. Skeptical, Petty tasted it with her finger, and a moment later, her face lit up with delight. She exclaimed that with this ingredient, she could make the best wine. Shiro was pleased to hear this but was too tired to stay awake. He collapsed onto the sofa, falling into a dreamless sleep, drooling alongside the fairy. The next morning, even the loudest bird chirping couldn't wake Shiro. When he finally opened his eyes, he was greeted by Anna's face. Confused, he wondered why she was there since his shop was still closed. Anna explained that her mother sent her with lunch and noticed the tiny fairy on his head. Her eyes sparkled as she gently lifted the fairy. Shiro introduced Petty and explained that Anna worked at his shop. After lunch, the three of them went out to the balcony for some fresh air. Seizing the moment, Petty asked Anna if she knew a boy with blue eyes and hair. Anna's cluelessness made Petty's face fall in disappointment. Shiro comforted her, saying it was impossible for Anna to know everyone in the city. Besides, they could ask around the small town soon enough. With their bags packed, the three set off to find the boy, with Anna helping. But first, they needed to figure out how to hide Petty. Anna had prepared a small backpack, and their search began in earnest. Shiro asked everyone he met about Petty's friend, from street vendors to doctors, astronauts, and even a kebab shop owner. But no one knew the mysterious boy. They even asked Ed, the local government office manager, a parrot, and a thief, totaling 27 people, but still found no clues. Anna suggested that the boy might not live in Nino, but Petty insisted her friend was on his way there. The only clue they had was Petty's necklace, which Shiro had photographed earlier. While the three of them sat under a tree to rest, Karen appeared out of nowhere, out of breath. Her first concern was whether Shiro was hurt. After hearing he had ventured into the forest with the Azure Sky group and knowing he was uninjured, she playfully patted Shiro's head, making him blush in embarrassment. Shiro showed Karen a photo of the necklace. She pondered it, feeling she had seen it before but couldn't recall where. Promising to inform them if she remembered, Karen rushed off to urgent business with her group. Shiro's curiosity piqued at Karen's grim expression as she mentioned the Azure Sky Group's failure to fully protect his friend, causing danger. Shiro tried to stop her, but it was too late. Karen had already disappeared down the street. He hoped the others would be safe from any fallout. Anna then suggested they stay with Petty for the night. Shiro asked Petty's opinion, and although she was initially reluctant, she agreed to the sincere invitation. After a day of fruitless searching, they all parted ways. Anna, with Petty discreetly tucked into her backpack, went home to find her mother. She excitedly hinted at a secret to show her, and her mother, Stella, agreed with surprise and excitement. Stella was initially startled but soon delighted to see the miniature person, Petty, commenting on how Anna and her mother's eyes were identical. Adjusting quickly to the idea of hosting a fairy, Stella brought tea and snacks for their esteemed guest. Petty was delighted by the softness of the bed, feeling its comfort for the first time. As they sat and chatted, Stella asked about the boy Petty was searching for, and Anna showed interest too. After some reflection, Petty began to share her story. She recounted the first time she left her village and encountered humans. She remembered how the boy's childish antics had made her laugh. Initially, she had observed him from above, finding amusement in his struggles and tears. But as his desperation grew, her heart softened, and she decided to intervene. When the boy saw her magic, he stood frozen, staring in awe. He asked if she was a fairy, marking the beginning of their unique acquaintance. Petty helped the boy face a rabbit, and to his amazement, efficiently cooked and eagerly devoured the meat, exclaiming repeatedly how incredible it tasted. At first, Petty thought there was something strange about the boy's palate, but she soon realized the truth. The boy was starving and hadn't eaten a proper meal in over 10 days. His gratitude towards Petty was evident after he was full, and he curiously asked for her name. She playfully responded that she would tell him once he became a skilled hunter. Over time, the clumsy boy evolved into a competent hunter, expertly using his bow and arrow to hunt larger and swifter prey. When he approached her again at dusk to ask her name, Petty hesitated once more. Petty's mind blurred with memories of past rejections. She avoided the boy's question, promising to reveal her name next time. The boy, understanding her hesitation, didn't insist, though it saddened him. That final meeting left both feeling lonely in their own ways, yet comforted by each other's company. Drawn together by their mutual solitude, Petty vowed that when they met again, she wouldn't just reveal her name but also learn his. As Petty finished her story, She laughed self-consciously and apologized to Stella and Anna, thinking her tale was dull. Suddenly, she felt a drop on her head, startling her. She thought the roof was leaking, but when she looked up, she saw Anna with tears streaming down her face, deeply moved by the story. Anna expressed her belief that Petty and her friend were destined to reunite, a sentiment that touched Petty profoundly. Meanwhile, in a different scene, Shiro, after spending over 2 hours bathing and enjoying the comforts of the modern world back in Nino, noticed Liero waving at him with a swollen face. Surprised, Shiro asked about it, and Liero managed a weak smile, explaining that it was the result of the mayor's scolding over his decision to bring Shiro into the forest. The mayor's disapproval was evident. Suddenly, Liero swung his arm without holding back and landed a punch on his own face, almost shocking Shiro. Liero then invited Shiro for a beer at the community bar where the community leader and others would be. Shiro quickly changed clothes and joined them at the bar. Everyone raised their glasses in celebration, happily sipping their beers. Shiro took a big gulp but didn't seem to enjoy it much. Enei guessed that Shiro didn't find the beer to his taste. Shiro awkwardly scratched his head, surprised when Enei laughed, admitting that he didn't think it was great either. Enei explained that the variety of drinks available in the frontier region was limited, and while some travelers had requested better options, the costs were high. The significant obstacle was Emil, who was a bit tipsy, wishing they had wine or cider instead of the current drink. Despite its sour taste and less appealing aroma, at least those drinks had a pleasant smell. Misunderstanding this thought, Shiro joked about sourness, equating it with Liero's playful jab, saying that a successful businessman like him would only drink noble wine. Shiro retorted that back home, there were many affordable yet delicious wines, categorized into 3 types: red, white, and rose. Recently, orange wine had also become popular. Each type came in various varieties, ranging from sweet to bitter, with some being light and easy to drink, while others were stronger with complex flavors. Prices varied widely, from cheap and accessible to as expensive as a house. Some people were so enthusiastic about wine that they paired different types with each meal. However, Shiro personally preferred sake, which also came in 3 main types: Junake, pure rice wine, non-alcoholic rice wine, and heinous, sweet sake without sugar. As he mentioned this, Shiro suddenly paused. Everyone's eyes were on him, eagerly waiting for him to continue. Even those who had been involved in noisy brawls earlier stopped and turned their attention to him. With some encouragement to continue, Shiro nervously swallowed and declared that there were many varieties from his homeland, suitable for any alcohol enthusiast. His eyes sparkled with anticipation. Despite the suddenness, Shiro sensed a golden business opportunity. If this venture succeeded, it could hit 3 birds with 1 stone. He loudly drew everyone's attention and announced a significant decision. In 3 days, Shiro would host a wine-tasting event featuring selections from his homeland. Today, Anna swapped her usual clothes for a server's outfit, which even earned her a compliment from Liero. They were helping out at the community bar, and despite initial objections due to Anna's age, her persistence paid off, and Stella agreed to accompany her. Nesca and Keela also donned their uniforms. Nesca's ice magic proved useful for chilling drinks. The bar manager expressed his gratitude for their help by offering each of them a bottle of their choice as a reward. Keela chose a fruit wine, while Nesca opted for a cola-flavored liquor. When Anna was asked, she innocently requested grape juice. Outside, the community was buzzing with excitement, eager to get in. Handsome Shiro stepped out to calm the crowd, expressing his gratitude for their relentless efforts in the daily forest search. As a token of appreciation, he announced that he would be opening a wine selection stall at his shop. The announcement was met with joyful cheers, as some in the crowd could hardly wait to taste the delightful offerings. Without further ado, Shiro declared that the drinks were on the house for the day, sparking a lively uproar in the hall. Momentarily worried about the 3 million yen he had spent, he reassured himself it was a worthy investment. He then introduced Ani, who wanted to say a few words to the crowd. Ani encouraged everyone to enjoy Shiro's fine wine but reminded them to work hard the next day. As everyone eagerly prepared to enjoy their drinks, the event quickly turned chaotic even before Shiro could pour the first glass. People pushed and shoved, but Ani swiftly stepped in to manage the situation. Her usually cheerful demeanor turned stern, scaring everyone into orderly lines. Liero stood beside her, picking out a bottle of sapari beer. Anna suggested adding a slice of lemon to enhance its flavor. Liero took a sip and, after a long gulp, his eyes sparkled and his face flushed. The beer's light fizz and fruity touch elevated its taste. He downed the rest of his glass in one go, placing it down with a satisfying clink, looking thoroughly pleased. Seeing his reaction, those behind him eagerly requested the same beer, praising its delightful flavor. On the other side, Stella and Anna tirelessly served an endless stream of drink orders while Shiro dealt with a customer who requested the strongest liquor available. People started whispering, recognizing the man as Erdos, one of the 16 heroes, known as the undefeated elf. Shiro handed him a bottle of Spirus, a potent liquor with a 96% alcohol content, notorious for its intense strength. Pouring a small glass, Shiro presented it to Erdos. The elf, holding the tiny glass, sneered and cynically commented about being treated like a child despite being 200 years old. Shiro, nearly panicking, quickly explained that he meant no offense and that the Spirus was guaranteed to get anyone dizzy. However, Erdos remained unimpressed, his face reddening with anger as he accused Shiro of trying to humiliate him. He boasted that he had never been drunk in his entire life, causing the entire hall to fall silent, listening intently to their exchange. Shiro continued to coax Erdos to drink, responsibly warning that excessive drinking could be life-threatening. Finally, Erdos accepted the message, deciding not to argue further. Instead, he dramatically ripped off his shirt and challenged Shiro to a fight outside to settle the matter. Everyone, including Shiro, was shocked at the prospect of a brawl with Erdos. Just as uncertainty loomed on how to handle the situation, Ralph intervened. Introducing himself as Ralph, a priest serving the Sky Lord Florine, he aimed to defuse the tension. Erdos, still furious, accused Ralph of provoking him, arguing that Shiro had insulted him first, challenging the pride of an elf. But Erdos firmly declared that alcohol flowed in their elvish blood by the barrel, not just a mere glass. Ralph remained calm and offered a proposition. As a priest, not only could he heal poisons, but he also had a spell to cure drunkenness. So, if Erdos happened to get drunk, Ralph would be able to cure him immediately. Erdos then added a bold wager. If he didn't get drunk, he would earn the right to drink for free at the bar for life. With this, he ordered Shiro to fill his glass. Shiro complied, emptying the entire bottle of Spirus into the glass. Erdos lifted the glass with its 96% alcohol content, sniffed it, and commented on its incredibly strong aroma, more intense than any alcohol he had ever encountered. Without further delay, he downed the entire glass in one go. The crowd watched eagerly, waiting to see the result of this bold bet. After a loud belch, Erdos slammed the glass down and stared straight at Shiro, asking if he looked drunk. Shiro scratched his head, observing that Erdos indeed seemed completely sober. Acknowledging defeat, Shiro watched as Erdos laughed triumphantly, looking forward to a lifetime of free drinks. But then, suddenly, Erdos felt a wave of dizziness and a sharp pain in his stomach. Within seconds, his towering figure collapsed to the ground, unconscious. The crowd was left in shock, unable to comprehend what had just happened. When Erdos woke up, his head was still pounding, and he couldn't comprehend what had happened. Shiro stood beside him, delivering a moral lesson to help him understand. Erdos would have been out cold if not for Ralph's timely intervention with his healing magic. Despite being a great hero, Erdos couldn't withstand the power of the alcohol. Erdos' subordinates, who stood nearby, were utterly shocked. It was the first time someone had dared to criticize him, and astonishingly, his first defeat came at the hands of alcohol. Everyone present was curious about this potent wine. Due to its powerful effect, they unanimously decided to name it Hero Slayer. It didn't take long for the wine to become famous throughout the land. By the end of that day, everyone was extremely drunk, sprawled out on the floor. Nesca and Keela were thrilled with the wines they had chosen. As the evening went on, Liar, now quite drunk, felt a bit embarrassed enjoying the free drinks. Shiro pondered the low price they had paid for such an addictive experience for travelers. Liar chuckled, commenting that this was typical of an experienced merchant. A few patrons even got into scuffles, but nothing too serious, as no one intervened, believing it was just a way to relieve stress. Keela, overhearing the conversation between Shiro and Liar, jumped in and patted Liar on the back, praising him as a good person. Despite the compliment, Liar knew Shiro had a hidden agenda. He had noticed a suspicious fairy hiding inside a wooden barrel. Realizing he could no longer keep it a secret, Shiro took the barrel and called out to his boss, asking if they had seen the person he was looking for. The small figure inside responded sadly, saying they hadn't and feeling guilty for troubling Shiro with such a task. Shiro wanted to comfort Petty but struggled to find the right words. The day ended without any success in locating Petty's friend, despite numerous inquiries about the necklace and posting pictures and descriptions for travelers. There were moments when Petty thought her friend might have already left Nino Rich, but Shiro and Anna assured her that many people still lived beyond the town. Maybe 10, 20, or even 30. Petty grew increasingly desperate, realizing how difficult it was to find one person in such a vast crowd. Just then, a voice called out from outside. Karen walked in, holding a strange box. As she entered, everyone, especially Petty, felt a surge of hope. Karen had searched her house after seeing the photo of the necklace that Shiro had shown her. She revealed that the necklace belonged to her great-grandfather, the first mayor of Nino Rich. Anna, shocked, asked Shiro about his great-grandfather. Shiro explained that it was his grandfather's grandfather. Karen, puzzled, asked why he was looking for her ancestor. Petty admitted that she was the one who asked Shiro to search. Shiro was surprised to see the fairy. Karen turned to Shiro, confused about the situation. After grasping the full story, she found it hard to believe that her great-grandfather had known a fairy. Without further ado, Petty anxiously asked about his current whereabouts. When Karen didn't respond, Petty pressed harder, bewildered by how she didn't know the location of her own ancestor. She argued that being family meant you should know where your relatives are. Karen paused, lost in thought, and then asked Petty about the lifespan of fairies. Without hesitation, Petty revealed that fairies live around 3,000 years, and she was only 300 years old. Shiro's expression darkened as he grasped the situation. Karen continued, explaining that humans can't even live for 100 years, meaning the person Petty was searching for had long since passed away. Hearing this, Petty fainted, her eyes wide with disbelief. She remembered enduring taunts and scorn, with no one wanting her around. No one cared for her, not even her parents. No one would have cared if she died. That's why, on a starless, moonless night, Petty broke the rules and left the village. But then she met him. It was the first time someone looked at her with such kindness. He thanked her for her help. It was the first time someone smiled at her and played with her. He showed Petty what happiness looked like, and for the first time, she realized there were people in the world who loved her. She wasn't a worthless fallen star. She understood that no matter how dangerous it was out there, as long as she had breath left, she would face any danger to save her friend. Despite lying injured on the ground, unable to stand, he joyfully told her he had made a necklace that could be paired with a beautiful gemstone, symbolizing their friendship. It was a reminder for both of them to think of each other, even when apart. From that moment, they became best friends. He gently explained to her the significance and importance of having a best friend. Petty was so moved that she cried tears of happiness. She had thought about revealing her name to the boy, but fear overwhelmed her. She feared that if she revealed her name, they would never have the chance to meet again. She vaguely realized their happy days would soon end, and they promised each other that next time they would reveal their names. But there never was a next time. The person she wanted to meet was now forever out of reach. After Karen left, Petty finally understood that the only person who had ever brought her peace was no longer in this world. Shiro, feeling deeply saddened, asked Petty about her plans. With a heavy heart, Petty admitted that she had no home to return to, having been cast out by her tribe. She also wanted to reveal to Shiro the cursed mark on her belly, which was seen by her people as a sign of impending disaster. This was why Petty was never wanted. Even her parents had abandoned her, barely tolerating her presence in the village until now. With no place to accept her, Petty felt truly lost. Once, there had been a nest of giant beetles in the forest, their numbers dwarfing the fairies. Thousands of these beetles began to see the fairies as prey, causing their population to explode and devastate everything around them. The villagers blamed Petty for the beetle attacks, claiming her presence was the cause and that she should have left long ago. Furious upon hearing this, Shiro declared that it was absurd to think Petty could cause such a disaster. The beetles had nested in the forest, and Petty couldn't help but laugh bitterly. Maybe she really was a disaster. Her name, Petty Fulu, was given by the tribe's chief and ironically meant one who defies fate. It was the same chief who first cast her out. It felt like a cruel joke. After being exiled, she had saved Shiro, a fool about to drown, hoping he might help her find someone. But in the end, she felt like the fool. Unable to hold back her tears, Anna called out to Petty, who floated above. Petty gently touched Anna's hair to calm the little girl. After a moment of contemplation, Shiro asked Petty if she wanted to save her tribe. He suspected she wouldn't care about the fate of those who had exiled her, but Petty didn't hesitate to say yes. She owed her name to the chief, and her parents were still in the forest. They might hate her, but they were her parents, and it was her home. She wanted to save them. Shiro, determined, told her they would save the fairies together. Crying, Petty asked if he really meant it, and Shiro responded with a look of resolve. They headed to the Travelers Guild to present their request to NEI and some members. Everyone seemed shocked by the number of giant beetles. NEI understood the situation but couldn't accept the request. It was 200% impossible. Facing an entire army of beetles would require at least half the guild's members. Shiro realized the cost would be enormous, both in money and manpower, depleting the guild's primary resources. But that wasn't all NEI revealed. The travelers were currently engaged in the search for an ancient relic. If the beetle nest were closer to Nino, it would be a different story. In short, the guild would not participate in this battle. Just as Petty was on the verge of leaving, Shiro called out, stopping her in her tracks. He proposed an alternative idea, suggesting a mutually beneficial deal instead of a mere request. With a fluid motion, Shiro gestured to reveal his storage space, a dimension of his own. He proposed that the guild find the location of the ancient relic, and in return, he would use his spatial transportation abilities to help them move their equipment. He was confident this would significantly speed up their operations and compensate for the time spent battling the beetle infestation. Nei's initial reaction was one of surprise and intrigue. Shiro explained that he possessed a magical item with enchanted space storage capabilities, able to hold up to 3 vehicles. While Shiro's proposal was generous, it wasn't enough to sway the guild's decision. The conversation seemed to reach an impasse when suddenly, a deep, gruff voice echoed from the back. It was Erdo's, with his unmistakable tone. Erdos, intrigued by the situation, asked Shiro about his plan. Shiro quickly explained their goal, to exterminate the giant beetle nest located in the eastern part of the forest. Without hesitation, Erdos accepted Shiro's request. Shiro felt a mix of relief and concern and questioned Erdos about his quick approval. Erdos reminded him of their previous bet over drinks, stating that since he lost, he was obliged to fulfill a request from Shiro. Despite Shiro's concerns about needing substantial manpower to tackle the beetle threat, Erdos confidently declared that he alone was enough to dismantle the monster nest single-handedly. At that moment, Ralph and Hawa joined the conversation. Members of the Azure Sky Group volunteered to help as well. However, NEI remained firm, refusing to give her approval. She emphasized that accepting a request without the guild's sanction was illegal, and she was not prepared to allow it. Erdos and Ralph stood their ground. Erdos was motivated by a promise from a bet, while Ralph simply extended a helping hand to a friend. They insisted they would not accept any financial reward for their involvement. Nesca chimed in, noting that if no reward was taken, it technically wouldn't count as fulfilling an official request. Keela also joined in, voicing support for Shiro. Moved by his friend's outpouring of support, Shiro promised to treat them to celebratory drinks once their mission was accomplished. Hearing talk of celebratory drinks, other members paused to inquire. Shiro revealed that it would be the same legendary drink he offered everyone a few days earlier, and perhaps even some fairy mead. The mention of this legendary drink had everyone excited and eager to join the battle. NEI was bewildered, watching everyone abandon their relic hunting tasks. At that moment, Petty the Fairy flew in, adding credibility to Shiro's words. She declared that the special drink was indeed made for her. Seeing the fairy, NEI was confused by the unfolding events, thinking Shiro only wanted to exterminate the giant beetles without understanding the deeper cause. Shiro had no choice but to explain the situation to NEI and the others. He revealed that Petty the Fairy was actually his boss and the one determined to destroy the beetle nest to save her relatives. As an ordinary merchant, Shiro couldn't face the monsters alone. At this point, Shiro bowed deeply before NEI, pleading with her to save the fairy tribe. Petty, in tears, approached NEI to negotiate, promising to make honey wine for every guild member if they agreed to help save her family. She too bowed her head, begging for assistance. NEI rubbed her forehead, feeling a headache coming on, and exclaimed that it was all too much. Shiro's desperate plea made her feel like a heartless villain. With a firm voice, she commanded all members from bronze rank and above to prepare for battle. Soon after, everyone gathered at the Jig Forest. Petty led them closer to the beetle nest. The beetle infestation had trapped the fairies in their homes, preventing them from gathering food and causing them to suffer from hunger and helplessness. Ancient architectural structures, now occupied by monstrous beetles, came into view. Shiro remarked to Pembohong that this must be the ancient magical civilization's relics the guild had been searching for. The chief of Petty's tribe had mentioned that this place used to be a cave, but long ago, an unknown species built the structures now standing. NEI found this discovery fascinating and quickly devised a plan to minimize casualties. Everyone was divided into 3 groups. 6 myth-ranked individuals formed the assault team under Nei's direction. 17 gold-ranked members were positioned at the gates to handle any bugs that flew out, and the remaining 56 silver-ranked members were tasked with dealing with anything that emerged from the exterior. This was their strategy to exterminate the giant insects, and they couldn't afford any mistakes. NEI continued organizing, assigning Erdos, a diamond-ranked member, to stand by in case the worst happened. Before she could say more, Shiro pointed out Erdos, who was already leading the way straight into the insect's lair. NEI was left speechless, her eyes wide with amazement. The Azure Sky Group remained behind to protect Shiro and the others. As the plan unfolded, everyone followed Erdos into the lair to exterminate the terrifying insects. The battle was intense. Shiro watched closely from outside, glancing nervously at his watch. 2 hours had passed when NEI finally emerged at the cave entrance. Shiro ran up to her, anxious for news. Berto followed shortly, laughing arrogantly and commenting that the young folks had underestimated him. It was just a morning workout for him. NEI stood beside him, reluctantly admitting that Erdos had single-handedly wiped them all out and ensured there were no survivors. Shiro and his friend, stunned and relieved, couldn't believe this man had pulled it off. Shiro then inquired about the presence of the insect boss in the cave. Erdos seemed unconcerned, assuring that if there had been one, he would have taken it down himself, though it would have required considerable effort. Berto turned to the fairy Petty, asking if there was any meat or, better yet, some wine. Shiro looked at him, pondering if they should inform the rescued people that it was Petty who had saved them. Suddenly, Petty felt a sharp headache and heard a cry for help in her mind. She shook her head and asked Shiro if he had heard anything, to which he replied he hadn't. Without further hesitation, Petty quickly flew toward the cave, shouting back that she would return soon. Without hesitation, Shiro followed, trailing behind as fast as he could. The liar managed to shout a warning before giving chase. Elsewhere, a small fairy was struggling to escape the clutches of a terrifying insect. Petty quickly flew to the scene, responding to the call for help. She saw the tiny fairy trapped in the pincers of a giant insect. Petty wanted to use her wind-slicing spell to cut the creature in half, but rational thought stopped her impulsive action, realizing it would also harm the fairy. With no other choice, Petty leapt onto the monster, but it viciously attacked her. Without using magic, her strength was insufficient, and she was quickly thrown off. Just then, Shiro and the Celestial Radiance group arrived. Keela took Petty's place, climbing onto the creature and repeatedly stabbing it with a sharp knife, while Nesca used ice magic to shatter its massive pincers. Meanwhile, Petty rushed to aid the exhausted little fairy, but the situation worsened as more swarms of insects emerged. The liar suspected that even more were coming from the nest. Guild members also arrived, but the sheer number of bugs was overwhelming. NEI was bewildered. They had driven off the insects without completely eliminating them inside the cave. One team member suggested there might be an escape route deep within the cave, blocked by monsters. NEI realized his oversight and felt unworthy of leading the team, but self-reflection had to wait as everyone's lives were in danger. Shiro came up with a plan. He asked Petty to stand in front of him with a can of pepper spray and a lighter. Shiro signaled, and a firestorm erupted, burning the swarm. They hadn't anticipated such an explosive effect from combining magic with modern technology. However, their victory was short-lived. They saw the Insect King still hovering, injuring Shiro. Petty tried the same tactic again but failed. The Bug King drew closer, its sharp fangs ready to strike. But before it could act on its evil intentions, a bolt of lightning struck it, causing it to scream in pain before disintegrating into ash and dust. Erdos had arrived just in time, gleefully stating that it had been a while since he enjoyed using his magical axe, Seagull, which he had acquired from an immortal wizard. Shiro, feeling a sense of familiarity, asked Erdos if the axe had any connection to the true judge. Erdos confirmed it, leading Shiro to mention that his grandmother was also a huge fan of Steven Seagal. Surprised, Erdos quickly turned and asked Shiro how he knew about that. Shiro revealed that he was the grandson of Arisu Gu. Realizing the connection, Erdos commented on the family resemblance. As they spoke, Petty was suddenly called by someone. Recognizing the voice, she was shocked to see that it was the village chief. Several fairies emerged, realizing the danger had passed, and invited everyone inside. They were awestruck by the mesmerizing and unique scene. The village chief confronted Petty, questioning why she had returned after being banished and why humans had killed the giant bugs. Petty couldn't hold back and shouted that she shouldn't have to answer these questions after being cast out. Sensing Petty's emotional turmoil, Shiro greeted the village chief and explained that Petty had saved his life. Out of gratitude, he agreed to help eliminate the beetle infestation and save the fairy tribe. The village chief then realized they had been saved by Petty, the one they had deemed cursed. Bitterly, he acknowledged her help. Nesca and the others, curious about Petty's identity, listened as the chief referred to the mark on her stomach, known as the Crest of Calamity. Recognizing the symbol, Nesca explained that it was known to wizards as a sign of immense mana. Those born with this mark had vast magical potential, which could drive someone insane if they couldn't control it. This revelation made sense, as such immense mana could be both a blessing and a curse. Believing that those bearing the mark were destined for a life of misfortune was an outdated notion. The only way to control this immense power was through diligent study of magic from the basics. Those who mastered this source of power would wield an astonishing amount of mana, becoming great wizards, also known as master wizards. Nesca continued explaining that in remote areas, some races still misunderstood and discriminated against those with the crest. However, this mark was not something to be shunned. Instead, it was proof of extraordinary potential. Having learned the basics at the Magic Academy, Nesca offered to teach Petty everything she knew, helping her gain control over her power. If someone with the crest learned to control their mana at will, it would be a tremendous asset to the fairy tribe. The village chief, upon hearing this, could hardly believe his ears. The theories he had been taught since childhood were entirely wrong. Acknowledging his mistake, he realized the true potential Petty held. The village chief bowed and apologized to Petty for all the hardships she had faced. He sought her forgiveness both as the village leader and as her grandfather. Overcome with emotion, the chief knelt and wept. Petty, also in tears, quickly ran to him and took his hand, saying that if she hadn't been exiled, she never would have met Shiro or been able to save the village. Thus, it was the right choice, and no one had wronged her. With the battle over, everyone returned home. Petty followed Shiro back to his shop, but she wouldn't stay long. The village chief mentioned that she would return to the village, and Petty agreed. Anna, realizing the fairy was about to leave, cried in sadness. However, Petty explained that she didn't want to live among humans anymore. Their lives were too short. If they died before her, the loneliness would be unbearable, the price of her long lifespan. In the end, Petty had come to the city to find someone, and now that they were no longer there, she had no reason to stay. Just as Petty was about to fly away, Karen's voice stopped her. Karen had found a letter among her ancestors' belongings, seemingly from her great-grandfather's best friend. She handed it to Petty, who carefully opened it. The letter, written in neat handwriting, began, "To my dearest friend. It has been so long since we last met, and even longer since I promised to see you again. Countless seasons have passed, and the once skinny arms you used to tease me about are now even thinner. Walking has become harder for me, but I still long to run through the forest with you as we used to. I heard that fairies live much longer than humans. You told me your name was Petty Fulu, such a beautiful name. I've whispered it many times while writing this letter. My name is Haroun Saraka. Thank you for finding me, Petty Fulu. Sincerely, your friend, Aaron Sankarika." That was the entire content of the letter Karen's great-grandfather had sent to the fairy. Karen believed her ancestor must have been greatly helped by Petty. The fairy couldn't hold back her tears after reading the letter. She realized his name was Aaron and felt less alone knowing he knew her name too. They had been each other's closest friends. Aaron eventually fell in love, had children, and his grandchildren had always been around him. This made her happy, and she knew she should be happy for Aaron too. Seeing her cry, Shiro comforted her, saying that although human lifespans are short and their time together was limited, the way they thought of each other transcended time. Aaron would live forever in Petty's heart, an unchangeable fact. Even though their time together might not last long, their bond was eternal. He hoped that he and Anna would also live forever in Petty's heart. Then, he took out a photo from his pocket. The picture showed the three of them together. To others, they might seem just like close friends, but the joy on their faces captured the happiness of their moments together. Anna couldn't hold back her tears, realizing Petty might be her closest friend. Lyre, Nesca, Keela, and Ralph, especially Nesca, empathized with Petty's feelings. Nesca, having fairy blood in her veins, would also outlive humans. Yet, Nesca wasn't afraid to love Lyre, cherishing every precious moment they spent together. This was a choice she made for herself. What about Petty? Through her tears, Petty made her decision. The village chief wasn't worried about her leaving immediately, and besides, Nesca had promised to teach her magic. Petty couldn't leave Anna alone. She was still so young. Determined, Petty decided she would return to the village after setting up a gravestone. Hearing this, Shiro silently hoped she wouldn't kill him on the spot, while Anna joyfully hugged Petty, happy she was staying. Thus, the curtain fell on Petty the fairy's adventure. 2 months passed, and the harvest festival was upon them. Shiro had promised Karen to make this festival a grand success. Anna, now a photographer, roamed around with her camera while Shiro and Karen hosted the auction. The first item was a legendary bottle of spirits known as Hero Slayer, which had once brought down a famous hero. It was bought by a man for 44 silver coins. The highlight of the day was a drink cherished by the fairy tribe, known as fairy grass, prepared for auction by a true artisan and newly appointed tourism ambassador, Nina Kaya, also known as Petty. The initial bid for the fairy grass was 1 gold coin, causing a stir among the audience. As more people raised their bids, the auction turned into a resounding success. The event concluded with everyone celebrating the triumphant festival. Shiro sat with Karen and Petty near the town square. They couldn't keep a straight face as they counted the hefty profit they made, 50 gold coins. Thankfully, Nino Rich had established a bank just in time. Karen thanked Shiro, attributing their success to his efforts. Shiro humbly deflected the praise, suggesting that the real credit should go to their boss, the creator of the revenue-generating items. Petty, however, had a different concern. With an awkward question that made both Shiro and Karen blush, she asked if they planned to have children, hinting that humans are often reincarnated, and their child might be Eren reborn. Both Shiro and Karen, flustered, denied it, explaining that humans go through many stages before marriage and having children, emphasizing that children are born out of love and the union between a man and a woman. Their stammered response frustrated Petty, who loudly told them to be quiet. Just then, Anna and her mother arrived. Anna had taken many photos during the festival, attracting numerous customers. Shiro invited everyone for a group photo. Despite the absence of bright lights, the soft glow of lanterns illuminated the small town of Nino Rich, a town created by Eren. As Shiro prepared to take the picture, Petty struck a funny pose, making him laugh so hard he couldn't press the shutter button. Suddenly, a woman's voice called out to Shiro. When he turned around, he saw an unfamiliar face. Confused, he scratched his head, unable to remember meeting her before. The woman then revealed that she was, indeed, Shiro's grandmother. Recalling what Karen had mentioned earlier, Shiro was astonished to find out that his grandmother was not only alive but also attending the harvest festival. His greatest wish since embarking on his adventurous business life had been to see his grandmother again, and it had been 2 months since he had last talked about her. In the meantime, Shiro had been attacked by a giant insect, and Petty had saved him from that danger. This significant encounter had led to many events culminating in the harvest festival. In the midst of the festival celebrations, a woman claimed to be Shiro's grandmother. Anna was confused because the woman looked so young. The woman then approached Shiro, displaying a strong family resemblance, but Shiro still found it hard to believe. How could an 8-year-old's grandmother appear as a trendy, beautiful young woman? It seemed impossible. Despite Shiro's disbelief, Karen was a bit embarrassed to meet an old acquaintance. Mrs. Arisu asked if everything was going well with the young mayor, and Karen confirmed that this year's harvest festival was a grand success, all thanks to Shiro's efforts. Mrs. Arisu looked very pleased and told Shiro that he had grown into a fine man, worthy of his efforts in bringing him to the festival since he was young. At this point, Shiro finally realized that the woman before him was indeed his grandmother. However, he still wanted to confirm further by asking about her film preferences without hesitation. Mrs. Arisu mentioned that her second favorite movie was Braveheart, although she often said Mad Max. Her favorite actor remained Mel Gibson. She expressed her sadness over her grandson's doubts about her identity, recalling an incident when a 7-year-old Shiro had wet the bed after watching a scary movie, and she had to change him. Shiro, embarrassed, closed his eyes tightly. The important thing was that his grandmother had vanished from his life without a proper goodbye, and now, after so many years, she had suddenly reappeared. How could he trust this situation? Feeling guilty for making her grandson sad, Mrs. Arisu tried to comfort him. She pointed at Petty, sensing an immense mana energy from her. Karen quickly introduced Petty as the legendary immortal witch, Arisu Gu. A crowd gathered upon hearing about the immortal witch, astonished by Arisu's appearance this year. Everyone pushed and shoved to catch a glimpse of the famous figure. Realizing she might not be able to enjoy the festival any longer, Mrs. Arisu drew a sword and plunged it into a magical circle. Some recognized it as the sword from Braveheart, the movie starring Mel Gibson. Without much explanation, she directed the weapon at the crowd, causing them to disperse immediately. An unconscious Shiro wondered what his grandmother was doing. Mrs. Arisu explained that it was just an illusion. She then embraced Shiro tightly, ignoring his protests, and flew up towards a rift in the sky, heading back home. As Shiro braced himself, thinking he and his grandmother would crash into the roof, another spatial portal appeared. They passed through it and landed gently in a soft, cozy room. While Arisu remained poised, Shiro found himself sprawled on the floor, foaming at the mouth. Once he recovered, they sat facing each other. Arisu sipped her tea, reminiscing about Shiro's mischievous ways as a child, and noted how he had grown into a handsome and graceful young man. Shiro, filled with questions, first asked about her true identity. Arisu pursed her lips and responded that she had already told him she was a witch, wondering if that wasn't clear enough. Shiro rolled his eyes, asking her to act her age and expressing his desire to know why she disappeared. He recalled the chaos at home on the day she vanished. Unfortunately, Arisu couldn't provide a straightforward answer, citing the many secrets and duties of the spirit world. Shiro, sensing he wouldn't get much information, prepared to ask another pressing question. Anna's youthful appearance resembled the illusion previously created by Arisu, who revealed that her current look was her true, original face. The aged face in the picture was a magical disguise she used while living in her world, and her real face hadn't aged over time. Shiro's doubts were dispelled as Arisu transformed into her wrinkled, elderly appearance. Shiro's reaction shifted from amazement to horror, quickly asking her to change back. Finding the reaction amusing and a bit excessive, Arisu remembered how Shiro's grandfather used to praise her youthful beauty. She fondly recalled intimate moments with him, making Shiro cover his ears in embarrassment, shaking his head to avoid hearing personal stories about his grandparents. Arisu smiled, asking if Shiro had any other questions. She suddenly remembered her late husband, Marisu, and their humble beginnings when they were building their home together. They were completely broke and couldn't afford a honeymoon. During their free time, Arisu came up with a clever plan to find an empty room, which became a cherished memory of their early days together. Arisu used her powers to connect a closet to the magical world of Lu-Fio. There, they enjoyed endless adventures, taming beasts, climbing colossal world trees, and even scolding a foolish king for his incompetence. Two unique skills that Shiro now uses were incredible products of Arisu's abilities, which separated her from the constraints of worldly logic. Her powers were so extraordinary that she could launch volcanoes into the sky, command the dead with forbidden spells, and even wield magic strong enough to split the heavens in two. Arisu offered Shiro the choice of this immense power as a gift from his grandmother. It was entirely up to him to decide, and she promised to sit with him until he made his decision. Initially overwhelmed by the unexpected offer, Shiro decided to cherish the moment and spend more time with his grandmother. He decided to prepare sukiyaki, her favorite dish, so they could enjoy a meal together and toast to their unexpected reunion. The next morning, Shiro traveled back to his shop through the spatial portal that bridged the two worlds. He felt a sense of relief knowing that the closet provided a direct connection to the second floor of his shop. He planned to apologize to everyone for his sudden disappearance the previous day. However, he was surprised to find Anna standing behind him. Reacting with shock at his sudden appearance, Anna stammered as she called out to him, and Shiro turned around, equally startled to see her there as well. As Shiro emerged from the spatial rift, he felt the weight of their inquisitive gazes. Anna and Petty, driven by curiosity, immediately asked if he had just returned from the land of the witches. Shiro, feeling increasingly flustered, realized they must have searched the entire town for him after his sudden disappearance. Petty even speculated that he might have been teleported by a witch. Realizing he could no longer hide the truth, Shiro confessed that he had indeed visited his grandmother's home the day before. He explained that Arisu had taken him to a place far away, yet accessible in an instant through her magical transportation. Hearing this, Anna and Petty's eyes lit up with curiosity, urging Shiro to describe what the witch's home was like. Overwhelmed by their eager faces, Shiro struggled to find the right words, only managing to mention that the atmosphere there was vastly different from Nino Rich. Before he could elaborate, the girls excitedly concluded that the stories about Nesca must be true. They continued to press Shiro for more details, and as he tried to back away, he accidentally slipped on a carelessly discarded banana peel, falling into a heap with Anna and Petty. They seized the opportunity to bombard him with even more questions. At that moment, Karen, Emile, and Ralph burst into the room, witnessing the amusing sight of Anna perched on top of Shiro in a rather intimate pose. After taking a moment to clear up the misunderstanding, a sense of calm finally returned to the group. Karen expressed everyone's concerns and thanked Shiro for his honesty, reassuring him that they were just worried about his well-being. Shiro's own mistake in revealing Arisu's identity led to an awkward confession. Ralph asked about Arisu's current whereabouts, and Shiro explained that his grandmother had simply mentioned she would return soon before disappearing. He guessed she would reappear eventually. Karen speculated that Arisu might attend next year's harvest festival, hoping it would attract nobles and even royalty. However, this concern was for the future. Right now, Karen had responsibilities as mayor. She needed to collect taxes to deliver to the regional lord. Everyone in the area had to pay these taxes, and she, as the town's representative, would personally deliver them to the lord in the mountains. Karen seemed worried about this task, understandably so, as people generally dislike paying taxes, which could lead to dissatisfaction with the mayor. But there was a more personal reason behind her concern. Her expression turned serious, indicating she had something important to discuss with Shiro. He was caught off guard, misunderstanding the gravity of the situation. Awkwardly, Shiro mentioned that he didn't have a girlfriend. Surprised by Karen's reaction, he realized she didn't mean to confess her feelings but needed privacy to discuss something else. They moved to Shiro's living room, where he brewed hot tea for her. Once settled, Karen suggested they dive into the main topic. She hesitated, unsure how to express her long-standing concern about Shiro. He was taken aback, wondering what she could be worried about. Karen's face turned red with embarrassment, making it difficult for her to continue. Shiro's imagination ran wild, now fully convinced Karen was about to confess her love for him. As he grew more anxious, Shiro's embarrassment also increased. Karen, noticing his discomfort, began to speak, admitting she had been troubled by something for a long time and wanted to discuss it with him. Shiro, feeling awkward, blushed, anticipating her next words might be a confession of hidden love. He prepared himself to respond, ready to reveal his own feelings for her. The room was filled with an uncomfortable silence, neither wanting to break it. Finally, Karen blurted out her question. Why was Shiro's hair so shiny and smooth? Despite her diligent hair care routine, she couldn't achieve the same results. Shiro was stunned, touching his own hair in disbelief. Karen nodded, admiring the shine and softness of his hair, noting how it seemed to form a halo of light around him in the sunlight. Jokingly, Shiro asked if she meant a halo like an angel's. Karen, a mix of envy and admiration, agreed with a smile. Hoping her hair could shine just as brightly for the upcoming event, Karen explained to a now curious Shiro about the upcoming tax presentation to the Count. The Count would host a grand party for distinguished guests, including the mayor and village elders. Karen, often feeling out of place at such fancy events, worried about the condescending stares from others who saw her as a simpleton from the wilderness. She lamented the lack of stores in Nina Rich selling appropriate dresses for such an occasion and her inability to travel to the larger shopping areas. Karen expressed her desire to have hair as shiny and smooth as his, hoping it would at least prevent her from being looked down upon. Understanding her concern, Shiro promised to help, assuring her that she would outshine everyone with his hair care products. Karen was curious about his special hair regimen, and Shiro vowed to also prepare a beautiful dress for her, ensuring she wouldn't feel embarrassed, even at a royal gathering. He promised to make her the center of attention, transforming her into a true lady. After Karen left, Shiro returned home that night and started researching famous party dresses. Arisu, noticing his focus, asked what he was doing. Shiro explained he was looking for a suitable dress for Karen, the mayor. Arisu, misunderstanding, thought Shiro wanted to change his own style, recalling her own past preferences before she died. Shiro clarified it was for Karen, not himself. Arisu squinted and teasingly asked if Shiro liked Karen, hinting that she noticed Karen's ample bosom. Shiro quickly corrected her, explaining it was simply because he had promised Karen. Arisu, playfully skeptical, decided to find the perfect dress for Karen. Shiro, noting Arisu's usual ash-gray, unattractive attire, doubted her fashion sense. Arisu coolly replied that she dressed according to the situation, maintaining a certain level of elegance.